Hello, everyone. I'm having a conversation with Isaac Cohen about the Middle East. How's it going, Isaac?
It's going great, Ron. How are you, buddy?
Really well, thanks. So, I had a conversation with Ryan Dawson the other day, and I take it you have a few exceptions to some of the points he made.
Yes, yeah. I wrote down a few things so we can just kind of go over them, whatever
Yeah.
we got
Okay.
time to go over.
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago now, wasn't it? So, or a
Yeah,
week
so
or so ago. So,
things have changed, yeah, on the
yeah,
ground.
not only have things changed, but I can't remember exactly what point for point they might be. So, you'll have to give me a little bit of forbearance there. But
Oh, no problem.
Okay, so let's go over the current situation in the Middle East quickly. As far as I'm aware, there's a ceasefire and it's holding. Is that correct?
More or less, there's been a few breaks here and there
Yeah.
from Russia, Assad, and the rebels. The rebels specifically on the Kurds. Assad is specifically on everybody. Um, but yeah, it's holding to the extent that the rebels aren't giving up on it.
Yeah, I've got a few news articles. I'll just pick a couple of points out of. Okay, so Washington says that the ceasefires are largely holding,
Mhm.
with a few breaches. I did have something a bit more specific, but I can't find it now. Russia says there have been 10 ceasefire violations registered over Syria, while 42 groups have so far agreed to the partial truce. Apparently, they've accused Turkey of shelling some Kurdish positions in
They have,
Aleppo.
yeah. Oh, I forgot about Turkey. Yeah, Turkey's been
Yeah,
shelling the living shit out of the Kurds. Like I have no. Just so I'm upfront, I'm very anti-Assad, but I'm incredibly anti-Turkey, anti-Saudi, anti. I'm very level-headed in the groups that I hate in these conflicts. I
right.
uh, I don't support the jihadist rebels. I don't support a lot of the Islamist rebels. There's very few rebels that I'm willing to put my name under and say that these guys might have some good intentions.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't. I've yet to see anything from any of the rebels that I think is laudable. Um,
Uh, well, in the recent ceasefire, one thing that's been pretty incredible that I would say is they've begun protesting again. I don't know if you've seen this footage yet, but I have a bunch of playlists. I've
I
got
haven't seen it. No.
148 protest videos from just yesterday.
Right. Okay.
All over Syria, they're doing it again, which is, I mean, that's what we
Sorry,
want, right?
who's protesting what exactly?
This is the civilians and the rebels on the ground. Instead of using guns, they're fighting a war. They put down their guns because it's a ceasefire, and they went to the streets and they're parading and throwing big protests. So much so that Al Nusra would come and destroy some of their protests.
Against Assad, yeah.
Yeah, protests against Assad. Al Nusra went to people that they fought alongside with for a lot of this conflict now, FSA.
Mhm.
They went to their protest, the FSA protesting Assad, and brought all their black flags and tried to ruin it. And there's actually video footage of these people kicking Al Nusra out of their protest, like punching
Right.
them, throwing them out of their protest. So there's been some really inspiring things that have been kind of like happening. But yeah,
Yeah, because
all the rebel groups have been really shitty before this.
yeah, because I mean, one of the problems I have with Al Nusra is their commander saying, "Well, we've got close ties to ISIS."
No. Well, so that's something that I really wanted to address.
No,
So
okay. Well, let's start with that then, since it's on the table.
yeah. So Jalani, when do you remember when he said this? Because that's really important.
I would imagine the video is probably a couple of years old now. I
Okay, so
haven't
yeah,
looked at
they
it.
did have very close ties with ISIS up to about 2013.
Right.
They were
Okay.
one for one together, and what had happened was Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi had sent Jalani in like 2011 with seven other Syrians to create al-Nusra to go and take advantage of the civil war that was happening over there. They make al-Nusra over there. Um, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi now wants to basically say he did a private oath to Zawahiri, the leader of Al Qaeda. That's
Right.
that's the baya, which is just pledging yourself to a certain caliphate or mindset or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and he said publicly that Al Nusra is a part of ISIS, which is him. And then Al Nusra said, no, we pledged to Zawahiri. Zawahiri accepts this, and Zawahiri tells Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, you need to stay in Iraq. And he says, no, I'm not going to do that. And so he splits off, and that is the moment that ISIS and Al-Qaeda become two separate factions.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to guess then that they're actually at war now.
They're in a huge war. What's
Because that kind of split isn't the sort of thing that generally would happen amicably, is it?
no. So what's incredible about this war is these terrorist organizations. They only work in areas where there's weak governance, where there's grievances for the locals for them to take advantage of. And that's how basically if the locals are on your side, you can control the land, and or if the locals fear you, you can control the land. But the locals have to feel like there's no other option, basically. So anywhere that there's an Al-Qaeda group, there's always going to be an ISIS group. And what's interesting is they're everywhere. So in Afghanistan, the Taliban is fighting the ISIS outlet in Khorasan in another province over there. And the Taliban's getting a real horrible run for that. There's about 2,000 ISIS fighters in Afghanistan. In Yemen, we know that ISIS is over there because Al-Qaeda literally has PDFs that they're sending to their leader bitching about losing recruits to ISIS over there. We know that ISIS is...
Hang on a second. Let's get a bit more of an overview for people then. So as I understand it, Al-Qaeda is essentially the source of a bunch of these factions, right?
Not the ISIS factions, but the groups that are... Al-Qaeda has like affiliates. They're not the same as ISIS's affiliates, but they basically pledged to them, yeah.
Okay, so I was under the impression that ISIS were originally something like Al-Qaeda in Iraq or something.
ISIS is Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Basically what it was is it's like, imagine Boko Haram pledged to Al-Qaeda, right? And then like 10 years later, Boko Haram's like, no, we're going to be our own outlet. That's basically, that's what happened.
Okay. Okay, fine. So how are the relations between, I mean, how connected is Al-Qaeda? Because this is something we used to hear about a lot.
They're very loosely connected, but they're connected tightly with about 4 organizations, and that's Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Al-Qaeda has Al-Nusra. Al-Qaeda has the good relations with the global Islamic media front in the Bangladesh, Indonesia areas, but they're not under direct control. They have direct control under Al-Shabaab. Very, very direct control under them.
Hang on, where were Al-Shabaab again? Sorry.
Al-Shabaab's in Northern Africa area, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was.
It's either Northern or Eastern Africa. One of the areas, because Boko Haram basically has stomping grounds, and then Al-Shabaab has very close stomping grounds to them.
Yeah.
And then they have, loosely, they have the Taliban, which I would argue is their most successful group. The Taliban's about 4 cities away from controlling half of South Afghanistan.
Yeah. Okay, that's an interesting sort of overview. So, sorry, what did I interrupt? What were you saying?
We were talking about them being allies. So they're at war with each other all over the place. In every single one of these places, they're constantly at war. They have videos. So much so that one of ISIS's most incredible videos that they did was they have two in Afghanistan where they took 10 Taliban leaders and executed them with IEDs on the ground, basically blew them all up. And then before that, right when they first got there, they got 8 of the leaders and they hung them, and they showed everybody the video. So they really showed that they're sophisticated and that are very capable of doing this fight. They're not restrained at all. With Al-Nusra, they've been at war with each other now since 2013, and it's become very, very, very brutal now. And there's some like major differences in the way that they operate and why they're at war.
Okay, well let's talk about that. Why are they different, and what are they actually fighting about? I mean, it sounds from an outside perspective like they're fighting essentially almost over sovereignty.
Yeah, it sounds like they're fighting over power, and it could be a little bit of that if we're going to be honest. I mean, I'm sure that plays a factor. Right?
I believe that's probably always a dimension in any conflict.
Yeah.
There are probably other things like you.
Yeah. So they actually, Al-Qaeda made this PDF, and I can actually share this screen. So basically what, I didn't explain what I do. I basically monitor terrorist propaganda and terrorist groups, and I put together their actions. I look at the videos and see what kind of different rulings and stuff that they're applying, and if they're following everything the way that they say they are, making sure that what new advancements, what new, like ISIS just got this recent guy that has tow missiles, and he's been vicious, and it's so like that, you know, he's important because his face is blurred and stuff like this. Like,
Yeah.
I make a lot of these connections, but let me screen share this real quick. All right, can you see this?
Yeah, I'm just gonna. Is my microphone okay? Someone in the chat's like, "Oh, why is this microphone so bad?"
Is mine okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I hope everyone can hear me. Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. So, is this something you've created? Is it?
No, this is directly from Al Qaeda.
Oh, so, right. Okay.
Yeah, this is directly from Al Qaeda. So this is their like little PDF where if you look, this is 45 pages long. I had to fucking read this.
This actually sounds fascinating, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like, if I don't know if you could see this, but I have like hundreds of PDFs that you get from these terrorist groups. So you go down, and the first point is the issue of declaring Shias disbelievers and fighting them. I'm not going to read all this whole bullshit.
No, just give us
so basically, they only deem Shias disbelievers if they're towards them or helping the enemy in any shape, form, or fashion, which is much different to ISIS's brand, where ISIS says, these guys are disbelievers, we need to kill all of them. And not only do we need to kill all of them, but they're worse than the Jews because they stole the Kaaba stone and killed 20. Like, like it's like it's infuriating hatred. It's like, the Jews can fucking wait. We need to take care of these guys.
Oh, this is, yeah. I mean, but the thing is that this is like classic sectarian violence. You know,
it is.
They are so much worse than the actual enemies because, I think the older days, you can't really hate something unless you've loved them first. You know, these guys should be on their side as far as I think ISIS.
It's funny because the Shia's whole like view is basically, can't we just hate the Jews together? Like, that's that's like their plan. They're just like, come on. Like, you literally hear Khomeini saying the sectarianism is ruining the Islamic unity, and we all need to be destroying Israel. And like, he just mic drops and walks away from it.
I bet to a roaring applause as well.
Yes, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But these terrorist groups just do not view it this way.
Yeah.
So it says that they believe in peaceful means, which means they're willing to do ceasefire tactics. They're willing to treat people well. They're willing to be quote unquote peaceful.
So
as a tactic.
This is like a manifesto basically for Al Qaeda.
This is Al Qaeda showing what they differentiate between ISIS.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a big deal about the management of savagery in the newspaper, the news, like the Guardian. I take it you're familiar with it, right? I'm
not entirely familiar with it.
Right, okay. Well, the Guardian and a bunch of other places put out a bunch of articles a while ago, and it's something I've been meaning to follow up on, but I've got so much stuff on, I can never keep track of everything. But basically, the management of savagery is like Machiavelli's The Prince for Islamic radicals. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant manual of how to fight the Americans and how to fight a modern nation state.
Do you know who wrote it?
I think it does say somewhere. I'd have to look it up. It's honestly, I assumed you were going to tell me about it.
Abdullah Azam, maybe.
Possibly. Hang on. Let me just.
Yeah, see if you can bring it up, because it's really interesting. Like, I can tell you all about the modern jihadist movement, all the way back to the first person, Ibn Taymiyyah, to Sayyid Qutb.
Abu Bakr Naji.
Maji. I have no fucking clue who that is.
I'll send you a link to it. Honestly, right? It's like I said, it's the sort of thing I've been meaning to get around to doing. I just haven't yet. But it's the most fascinating thing because it's brilliant. It's so good at what it does. It accurately represents the Americans from the outside point of view. And this is one of the things that, and not just the Americans, just the West in general. One of the things in the West that we have really sort of done well at convincing ourselves of is our own bullshit. And they describe this sort of media halo that goes around everything.
This is probably not written by jihadists. This is probably written by an Islamist then. This is they're like
difference.
So there's a huge difference. So like jihadists are people that most often or at least 50 to 60% of the time are ideologues. So the way we know this is if they're foreign fighters or local fighters. So local fighters are almost always, if like we know this from Iraq, they'll surrender if you get them cornered, right? Foreign fighters will just keep shooting until you kill them. Right. They believe in this martyrdom prophecy. They want to live under the Sharia, stuff like that. So that represents about 50% of the constituency. And then the Islamists are people that fall for this trick of the West is evil, the West are imperialists, the West have been taking Muslim lands and stuff like this. Now, some of this may be true, but that's irrelevant. What they do is they take advantage of these grievances and they tell them, well, we're going to fight the Americans. We're going to fight the group. And these are Islamist fighters. And those generally can be potentially rationalized out of it. These are the people that can be de-radicalized. The people that are like the faith fighters, essentially, there's no getting to these people.
Honestly, I've only read about half of this so far. I basically stopped halfway thinking, right, okay, I'll pick this up later. But from what I read of it, I would not think for a second these people can be reasonable.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough.
Absolutely not. They go on about jihad constantly. The whole thing.
Then I could just be completely wrong. Then
yeah, you haven't read it, so these people seem insane, frankly. So I don't think there's going to be any rationalizing with them. In fact, and the thing is, they're not insane. That's the thing.
They just believe their religion, and then they make these logical deductions from that point.
Absolutely, they've taken this really well. I think it's particularly warped stance to start with, and then they've really, a really clever person or persons wrote this manual.
There's a great, so the modern jihad movement really begins with Sayyid Qutb, who basically makes this whole narrative of the West is filth, the West doesn't cover its women and stuff like that. And then it really kicks off with Abdullah Azzam. This guy makes these incredible, let me go to these pictures. Can you see these pictures that I'm looking through right now? In my folder? Hold on. I'll probably have to fix it in a second here.
Try unsharing and sharing.
Yeah. Let me find the picture first before okay. Okay, and then let me unshare and share this. Stop sharing. And then screen share. Poppycock. Don't you judge me for saying poppycock. All right. I've almost deciphered this. Okay, here we go.
That's all right.
All right. So can you see this now? You should be able to.
Yes, I can see that now.
Okay. So that is one of the quotes from Abdullah Azzam. And he makes these like little inspirational quotes that are that make like this one. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the shuhada, witnesses to the facts that the deen is greater than life, the values are more important than blood, and principles that are more precious than souls. This man is responsible for the mentality that jihad is an obligation. Jihad is something that all Muslims have to do. And the reason he made this like fatwa is because there's no caliphate. There was no caliphate at the time. So basically what you would do is you would have the caliphate decide who was going to be waging jihad and why. But he essentially took this and said, well, there's no caliphate. And he's obviously a Palestinian refugee who wanted unity and the destruction of Israel. And in that, what ended up happening was Zawahiri, with his takfirism, kind of influenced everything and changed the role and route of which Al-Qaeda went through.
Right. So where is this guy from? I've never heard of this guy.
This guy is possibly the most important person in the modern jihadist movement. He is from Palestine.
Right. And where is he still in Palestine, or do we not know?
No, he's dead. He got killed in what's it called? Like the 70s or the 80s.
Right, okay.
And they think he might have got killed by his partners, Osama bin Laden and Zawahiri. He died in a car bomb. But there's really no way to know. I mean, all of that's rumors. But yeah, he's the if you just look through his writings, he makes it so compelling. And this is why he started the jihad movement in Afghanistan to resist the Soviets, and he influenced Osama bin Laden.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah. So the next point that Al Qaeda differentiates is they're not afraid to go through democratic Islamists. That is in itself one of the biggest sins to ISIS. That they're willing to do that.
That's. I mean, just sorry. I keep interrupting. Sorry about this.
No. You're please. You're fine.
That's very interesting because that's even if they're using a system to, even if they're looking at the system and going, okay, well, we can co-opt this by becoming a political party, winning elections, and eventually becoming the top, the head honcho of the country. That gives the system validity, and I can imagine that ISIS would say, no, this system has no validity, so you have an obligation to not participate.
What's interesting is, so not only do they believe like that they could do that, but they also are okay with being pragmatic and fighting side by side secular jihadists, which is FSA people that are willing to set up democracies or set up split areas of democracy for minority groups and stuff like that, going stuff that's directly against Islam. I mean, democracy in itself is directly against the scriptures of Islam. And so they're willing to fight alongside people that smoke, that do sins, that drink wine and stuff like that. All because what Al Qaeda tries to do is it tries to go from the ground up, where it tries to make friends with everybody and kind of convince them that they're the better idea and stuff like that. And ISIS goes from the top down, where it's just like, well, we're the figure, you come to us or you're going to be attacked by us. And they've both held true to those very notions. But the fact that the Mujahideen of Al Qaeda are willing to fight side by side with people like FSA or any groups that aren't as religious as them is one of the biggest points that ISIS points out. Like their Sharia rulings are weak and stuff like that. Everything.
It's probably a massive propaganda coup, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I mean, this is Al Qaeda's PDF that I'm going through right here. So this is them kind of praising what they're saying. But ISIS would be much more ruthless. Like, these guys try to basically point themselves. Al Qaeda's trying to point themselves as like the reasonable, rational jihadists.
Well, I've seen what ISIS are doing, so I think that maybe they might be.
They might be, but like a reasonable, rational jihadist.
Other people, I mean,
Well, I mean, it's insane that the people that fly planes into buildings are trying to call the other terrorists moderates. It's like, what the fuck does that even mean?
I don't mean to laugh, but it's so funny. It's like the line between them is so thin. It's like, this is a really important thin line, and you've got a gulf of crazy shit that separates them from everyone else.
Yeah, it's absolutely hilarious.
So yeah, but let's go through the next place then, because this is really interesting.
There's like a few small points, but basically they call ISIS the dogs of hellfire, the Kharwaji. And the Kharwaji, I think you said you were reading the Quran. Have you gotten to the Kharwaji part yet? I
have not. I'm only on, I think, Surah 3 now, I think it is.
You're going to get a spoiler. So
yeah, no, go ahead.
So basically the Kharwaji is something that the Prophet in Revelations talks about, where he says these people will call for the Sharia, but it won't go past their throats. And they'll speak Islam, but it won't go past their lungs. And they'll look like Muslims, but they're not Muslims. And it's funny because Al Qaeda has a video where they're calling al-Baghdadi Kharwaji, the dog of hellfire. And they talk about, they say, our prophet warned us about extremism in our religion. And I lost my shit, because once again, the guys that are flying planes into buildings are trying to call other people extremists. What the fuck constitutes being an extremist anymore? What do you have to do?
Well, apparently you have to go that one step further, don't you?
Yeah, you have to be a-literal.
So yeah, what are the next points?
Oh, well, that's roughly it. I mean, there's a few things that they'll say, like, Al Qaeda doesn't do Sharia effectively, and this is actually a fact. So one of the biggest things about ISIS is that their ruling and governance is 100% accurate. So nobody's excluded. Whereas Al Qaeda, FSA, and anybody else that like FSA's governance had a lot of corruption. People could get away with rape and stuff like that, and it was a big problem. The Al Qaeda's group, they would not apply the Sharia to families with a lot of money or like high ruling noble families in the area. ISIS was just like, no, we don't give a fuck. Like, we'll kill our leader. We'll kill our emir of the group right now. Show me a video of him smoking a cigarette. Like, I'm not afraid. And
okay, so, this is very interesting. So so is it safe to say that ISIS are taking a very literal and singular reading of the Quran?
Oh yes, yeah. There's when you read any biblical or Quranic text, the first thing you'll do is you'll be like, what does that really mean? ISIS just says, no, I'm not going to ask that question.
Yeah.
And that's a stupid question to ask. Why would you, who said you could ask that question?
Yeah.
So you read it and you're like, well, this is my command. And then if you try and contextualize it where they're like, this was for back then, they'll go, who said you could put restrictions on the Quran? Who said you could do that? Did God give you the ability to put the restrictions, the textual constrictions on the Quran? This is bid'ah. This is innovation. This is fitna. This is shirk. This is not real Muslim. You're not a real Muslim.
It's interesting because it actually really does remind me of the Protestant Reformation and Christianity. I mean,
it's more insane in every way.
Oh, I mean, of course.
Yeah.
But it really just struck me as it's acting along the same principles. Because I mean, Scripture alone was one of the driving points that Martin Luther was making. That the Catholic Church had built up a huge amount of accrued dogma that wasn't in the Bible. You know, none of it was biblical, and he wanted to get rid of it. And this really reminds me of that, like a literal what's in the Scripture is what's important. I mean,
this is all because of the differences in Zarqawi to Osama.
Right.
So Osama allegedly had an Alawite mother, which is a schism of Shia. So when Zarqawi was like,
hang on, let's define what we're talking about for anyone listening. Right. So let me try and then correct me when I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're good.
So the Alawites are a minority religious group, or probably ethnic group, I don't know, in Syria.
Mm-hmm.
Assad is an Alawite.
Mm-hmm.
They are, like you say, Shia. Shias are generally
12ers normally.
Sorry?
The Shias are normally 12ers. So these are the people that believe in 12 Imams. But then among the branch of Shias is a minority of Sixers and Alawites.
Yeah. And they're in opposition to the Sunnis, based on a different schism, obviously. Not Obama. Osama, yeah. Sorry, there's a lot to juggle.
They look a lot alike. They say the same thing.
Well, yeah, I wasn't thinking they look necessarily the same, but Osama is. I'm not sure actually. He's not an Alawite, is he? Is he an Alawite?
Osama was a Sunni Salafid, just like Zarqawi and everyone else. So Salafid is people that believe the revelation revealed by the Prophet was taught best to the first generation of people. And the second generation of people that witnessed those first generation of people followed what was known as Salafid Islam, followed the second viewing of Islam. And this is what these guys consider themselves doing, is going back all the way to the people that witnessed the people of the Prophet and the companions of the Prophet and act in accordance with them. And it is the poison well of terrorism today. The entire ideology works in a really disgusting manner. So in the Islamic State, if there's a disregard, a problem with a ruling that someone gave, where the scholars are condemning Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, but the state of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is saying no. So like if there's like the Saudis saying Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is illegitimate for these reasons, and Abu Bakr saying I'm not, they are required to go back into the Quran and the biography of the Prophet and witness what the Prophet did or his companions did and look for a situation that was comparable to this. and if it's comparable to Baghdadi's cause, then he's right. If it's comparable to the Saudis' cause, they're right. And this is the problem. So like they held that pilot captive and lit him on fire because of he allied with the Kufar, and that makes you an apostate. Who did this in history? The fourth caliph, Ali, did that to apostates. Why isn't that allowed? It's supposed to not be allowed. Fire is supposed to be saved him for burning apostates in any sense. So it does not mean it is wrong. It does not mean it is good. It means you are not forbidden to do it. And they make a lot of inferring and implications like that in this religion.
Right. Okay. And so Bin Laden, ISIS, they're all Salafis, right?
Yes, 95% of all terrorist groups on the planet are Salafids.
Right. Okay. So, they are taking what, a sort of 8th century interpretation?
Yeah, that would be an accurate description. It's really difficult. So they take the most amount of hadiths literally, and
right.
They let the hadiths abrogate the Quran, and this is the crux of the issue. If you have someone that just believes in the Quran, they can make do. I mean, they're going to have like shitty views about gays. They're going to have shitty views about women, but they're not going to be murderers. They're not going to be sectarian, genocidal, insane maniacs. But once you start taking things like the doctrine of martyrdom, which is, who are the best of the people amongst your ummah? Well, those are the people that when they're fighting the enemy, they don't turn around except to gain a tactical benefit, and they stand firm and steadfast against the enemy until they kill and are killed. Mm-hmm. This is where this doctrine of getting yourself
that
killed
comes from the hadiths, does it?
This is a hadith, yes.
Right. I like I said, I haven't finished the Quran yet, so I didn't know.
Yeah, the hadith is the sunnah. It's the life of the prophet and the sayings of the prophet. So you wouldn't find it in the Quran anyway.
The Quran, isn't it? So, okay, that's very interesting. I didn't know.
Yeah. It's one for one. So much so like you can tell the thing on the right, the watches on the right hands, you'll notice a lot. This is the distance themselves from the disbelievers to not dress like them. That's why they do that.
I didn't know.
Yeah, they all aren't just left-handed weirdo terror. It's not a left-handed conspiracy where all left-handed people are terrorists.
If it was, I'd been on it. So,
well, you do have a beard, so I feel like
do. You know, apparently left-handed people are on average smarter than right-handed people.
Well,
just a little dig at the varieties.
In the middle of my conversation with you,
I'm not going to lie. So these guys, I actually find this really odd because I was under the impression that around the 8th century, Islam wasn't as well. I mean, it was dogmatic, obviously, but it wasn't like ISIS. It wasn't convert or die.
Yeah. So that like I said, that's like a new basic like what's it called? Like a new thing that's been happening since Zarqawi. So Zarqawi, what he's been doing is what's it called? He was a genocidal maniac. He believed this Shia are the devil mentality, and he's had this view since 1994 when he used to be like a druggie and alcoholic because his father hated him and his father died at a young age, and he always wanted his son to become like clerical. His mom sends him to this Salafid university, and it's like a rebirth for him. It's a reset. He becomes this like super religious, ultra orthodox conservative guy. And he hates Jordan. He hates the Saudis. This is another thing that I meant to address. I think Ryan said that the Saudis are trying to make ISIS be like Saudi Arabia 2.0 in the Middle East. The Saudis have stopped exporting Salafid jihad into like mosque and stuff since the 90s because they are absolutely afraid of this backlash because ISIS wants to cut their heads off.
Yeah. One of the sorry, I just want to say that I'm aware that ISIS and the Saudis are not friends.
Beyond not friends.
Yeah, this probably about a year ago now. Cenk Uygur, When ISIS first
I
came
love the way you say his name.
yeah, how's it supposed to be said?
It's supposed to be Jank, but I think Chank is so much funnier because it's not how it's supposed to be pronounced, and it's insulting.
Well,
I think
I'm not trying to insult him, but I mean, he actually said that there was a chance of Saudi Arabia flipping to ISIS.
no, that's the stupidest thing I've heard.
I know. I was just like, Cenk, that is just. I mean, that's just.
That's rapidly like the most ignorant statement you can make about the situation.
That would be like the Saudi royal family just saying, you know what, we'll cut our own heads off. You know?
You cut your head off, and then maybe he could cut mine.
Yeah. And I mean, Saudi Arabia built a fucking great wall along their fucking northern border, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Yeah, specifically. So what's interesting is the people of Saudis do have a lot of ISIS sympathizers. There's no doubting that. Lots of suicide bombings at Shia mosques can prove that. So there are sympathizers, but they're mostly, they just go and join the caliphate. They don't go over there and try and institute it. Now, ISIS is afraid of that, and Saudis are afraid of that, and they've been afraid of this backlash from their, exporting this Wahhabi mentality all across the world. And this really is one for one, like South Africa or Northern Africa, Salafid mentality attacking the Sufis is making this sectarian violence breed and breed and breed all across the world.
Are you saying that the Saudis have basically made their bed, and now they realize that lying in it?
Yes, it is exactly like that. They see it and they're like, guys, this is a problem. That's literally what has happened. They had no clue it was going to do this because they're just.
I mean, they must have understood that any sort of really radical ISIS-like entity would have looked at the Saudis and gone, "You are the whores of the West."
Yeah,
they must have known this.
More of the West, like they're like, but yeah, these guys allying with the kuffar immediately makes you an apostate. So this is all they need. This is just shirk ekbar, which means great sin.
But there's a good chance they're going to flip to ISIS. Honestly, that still tickles me. It really does. It's
really bad.
That's amazing.
So the Saudis' mentality. I forgot where I was. I have no idea what we were talking about.
The Salafi mentality that's been exported by the Saudis, it's really taken root in, obviously very much so, taken root in several places in the Middle East. Yes, presumably the worst off areas, the most war-torn areas.
Yeah, so Zarqawi's mentality comes from that, but there's two types of mentality with this. There's the far enemy, which is the US, and the near enemy, which is Jordan, Hashemite Kingdom, the UAE, the Iranians, and stuff like that. And so they believe that they need to basically unfracture all these whore apostate type countries. But the first thing they have to do is they have to kill the Mortad. The Mortads are worse than the Kafir, and the Mortads are Iran, or Shia.
Oh, right, the Shia, right.
Yeah, Mortadin. That's what it means.
And that's presumably why they hate Iran, right?
Yes. And so what a Mortadin is it's someone that claims to be a Muslim but isn't a Muslim.
Right.
And this is the reason it's worse. A Kafir is not going to try and tell you, I'm a Muslim, come and join my faith, and then you get sent to the hellfire.
I understand completely, because I'm a liberal and progressives hate me for being a liberal and not being right-wing.
Yes.
They hate me more than they hate any Donald Trump supporter.
Yeah. It's funny because, it's mutual, right? We hate them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They run around going, we're liberals, we should ban things. It's like,
you are not liberal. You do not believe in freedom of speech. I'm gonna kill you and your family.
Worse than the Kafirs progressives.
Yeah. We need to be harsh on the kuffar, Sargon. All right, we need to be harsh on the kuffar.
That's exactly how it is. But it's the nature of sectarian violence.
It's exactly.
So they hate Iran because they're Shia. They hate the Sunnis because they're generally in bed with the West.
Yeah, they have democracies, or they're not ruling under the Sharia. There's three great sins, and those are all three of them.
Yeah, and I presume they hate the Syrian regime
because he's
Russia. He's the secular ruler. He's in bed with Russia.
Syrian regime is because he's an Alawite that's bombing Sunnis, and that's never going to go over well. And that's why in the talk that you guys had, when he was like, the Balkanization is a bad idea, the only reason he doesn't like that, I presume, I'm not going to say that speaks, for him or something like that.
Yeah.
Is because of his views about Israel in some manner.
Okay. Well, instead of speculating, because I don't know, and I'm in no position to defend his views.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want you to.
No, I know, but I don't want to start making judgments like that, because he might actually, I would rather presume he has rational reasons.
From his words, he doesn't like the balkanization of the states, which I consider the best solution that we have possibly right now. The better solution would have been to have gotten in and intervened when there was rational people on the ground.
Yeah.
But there's very few rational people outside of the Kurds on the ground now.
Yeah.
So the best route is to combine Syria and Iraq and split it into three, and never allow this type of I have a Sunni ruler, but I'm ruling a Shia population thing to occur again, because this is the exact same thing that happened with Saddam.
Yeah, and I think this is something that people don't really understand with the Middle East. They're not nationalists; they're like religionists.
Yeah, they're like religion ethnicities in a weird regard.
I mean, if for example, for any British watching, it would be like having a French prime minister.
Yeah. Or in Israel, having a Palestinian leader over there, and anything you do is going to be like, oh, it's because he's a Palestinian and he wants to kill all the Jews. Like, that's the mindset that they're going to go through.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, they don't care about fucking secular democracy. It's just.
Yeah, exactly it. And what's the problem is if you give them democracy in most of these places, it's going to be an Islamocracy.
What happened in Egypt? Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah. First thing.
Yeah, they're going to vote for it because that's what they want. The Pew data shows us this. We know what they want. They've told us.
Yeah, it's a problem because like you can probably cut down about half of them to believing in Sharia because they think it's just the right way to live, not because they know the actual. A majority of these people don't know the fucking codes of their religion. They have no concept of what's going on. But the other 50% do know, and that's all you need is 50% for a democracy to take.
And it's always the loud minority in anything. The silent majority, effectively, when you talk about politics, there is no such thing as a silent majority. These are people who are non-entities. They don't exist, as far as you can say.
They should be called enablers, is what they should be called.
Yeah, no, they should. And this is something that always drives me crazy. People are, the majority of people. It's like, well, the majority of people aren't saying anything. They're just going, shrugging their shoulders and going, well, okay, I'll just go.
The majority of people are afraid of getting their heads cut off by this minority. I don't know if you were there for that conversation.
And that effectively is the same with any. I mean, it's the same. We see this constantly with progressives, right? The amount of people who email me or like contact me on Twitter and stuff who are like major figures, major, really important people who are like, I'd love to speak out in favor of Gamergate or against progressives, but I'm afraid of the backlash. It's exactly the same thing, except this backlash gets heads chopped off.
Yeah.
This is a much worse backlash. So even fewer people are inclined to speak out about it.
What a bummer. That's so shit. And I don't think I've ever said anything about Gamergate, but I love the work you do. I've watched your channel for a long time. Thunderfoot's channel too. And I think you're doing really important work because I don't want my games ruined either.
I don't either. Yeah. But okay, yeah. Anyway, so.
Yeah. Okay. So another thing that he said was he was talking about how we gave Toyota Hiluxes to the FSA, and then he sees in ISIS videos just Toyota Hiluxes. This is the equivalent of me saying Russia made AK-47s. Everywhere in the Middle East, there are AK-47s. Russia is financing terrorism. That is the equivalent of that kind of a statement that he made, in my opinion. So I don't think correlation is causation, and I don't.
I'm not sure. Just to play devil's advocate for a moment, I'm not sure that he was really trying to say that. I think
if he was, then I apologize if he wasn't trying to say that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it didn't come across that way.
Yeah. That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, and it's possible that it's entirely easy to do. I'd have to re-listen to the conversation just to make sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to be completely fair here, so thank you.
No, of course, and that's one of the things I try to do in general. And I think the complaint was a lot of equipment was given to the Iraqi army and the Free Syrian Army, and
they have run and just given there's no doubting any of that. So like.
I think that was really his main point. I don't think he was trying to.
Then I would agree with him if that was his main point, that we aren't.
Again, I might be wrong. So.
Yeah. So there's definitely no doubt about that we arm people, and that a lot of shit has gotten into ISIS's hands. A lot of their advanced shit has come from the Iraqi security forces, where they didn't even know they were going to take over Mosul. Do you know this? They wanted to do a prison break for a bunch of jihadists that were in Mosul, and they just went into Mosul, and then 30,000 people ran away with 800 fighters. Like, you can't. And so they were just like, oh, we'll just take over Mosul. And so they just called for reinforcements, and they got around, and they put their dudes all everywhere, and they blockaded and kept on advancing. That is how they took over Mosul. They had no clue that was going to happen.
That's amazing, because I mean, I love military history. I absolutely adore military history, and the idea that 30,000 armed soldiers would flee from 800 soldiers makes me think that the 30,000 really didn't have any faith in what they were doing.
Exactly. No, they didn't believe in Iraq. There's no way they believed in the nationality of Iraq, of what it needed to be. You can't be unnationalistic and told to defend a nation. It just makes no sense. So yeah, that happened. One of the other things that was brought up, which was accurate actually, he brought up Turkey buying oil from ISIS. That's 100% true.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
That's factual. We got that from the oil emir in May of 2015. We did a special operations move, whatever fucking thing. We did that, and we killed him. We got the ledgers that showed us everything, and what it showed us is that the majority of ISIS's money isn't foreign-backed money. There's no foreign backers, actually. The foreign backers are backing Al-Qaeda. So people, when they say, the Saudis are funding ISIS, it's just wrong. The Saudis are funding Al-Qaeda, yeah. They're giving Al-Qaeda weapons, specifically Al-Nusra, if you want to be specific. They're not like just going around they're giving it to them because they feel like they're defending the Syrians. And the Saudis hate Assad, obviously.
Yeah.
So the ISIS is making most of its money through taxations, through I bet you love that because you hate taxations and shit like that.
I'm actually not that bothered about tax.
Okay. I thought you had like libertarian principles in some areas where.
I guess, but like I'm not like an anti-statist. I can't really. I mean, I get most libertarians are American, and looking at the American government, I guess I can see why, especially with the massive expansion under Bush, and it's just continued under Obama, and I can see why there would be
of the Bush. Is that
that's something you can quote me on. So I would prefer to have less taxes than more, but I'm not against the idea of the state taxing you. I think it's really a bit too idealistic to think that that's ever going to be. That you're gonna just have death as the one constant.
It's not feasible.
Yeah,
so 40% of their income, which is the majority, is confiscations and taxations in the Islamic State, and charging entry fees to people that live near them to come in. So it's like Sunni Muslims that want to do like sales and stuff, like selling in the markets and the bazaars. They pay a tax to come into the Islamic State. They pay a tax to leave it when they want to go home. So this is the majority of their money. The oil represents about 30% of their total income, a big portion, but it's not all of it.
Yeah.
And it's dwindled down now. So now that we're bombing the shit out of their oil factories.
Well, yeah, just to confirm, the Russians have been bombing that, haven't they?
So yes, they have been bombing it. To give you an answer. So what the Russians did is we used to not bomb because this is a huge part of the economy at the local level. Oil is a huge part for the locals to be able to have like money to buy food, and so it's not like it's ISIS selling the oil in the way that you think that ISIS is driving these tankers. It's civilian driving big tankers. They buy the oil from ISIS, and then they just go and sell it.
Sure.
So
middlemen.
Yeah. Now we bomb those tankers. Now since Russia started doing it, what we had done before is we would bomb the processors or whatever to filter the oil into normal gas. We bombed the refineries. We bombed the refineries, and then they just were like, well, fuck it, we'll just sell it in crude oil. We don't care. Yeah, we have no
it can
problem.
Be refined anywhere. Can't
it? So they just been like literally spigots in the ground to these tankers. But in that same ledger, something that he did not mention, and you can look this up, is the fact that Assad was buying about 50% of the oil that they were making. So this is a huge thing. Now, he does not buy it directly from ISIS.
Of
So this is
course.
an important thing. He buys it from smugglers that get this oil from ISIS. So ISIS is very, this is a point that ISIS endorses. Like ISIS tells people, we're not selling oil to Assad. People buy our oil and sell it. We don't, this isn't us.
It's amazing that it's important on both sides.
Yes,
to
exactly.
have this plausible deniability. I'm just
Yeah.
buying from a middleman. I don't know where this really cheap oil is coming from. It could be coming from anywhere. Yeah, you know. Yeah.
What a catastrophe! Cheap oil.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And, you know, one thing that a lot of people forget is that Syria doesn't have oil.
Yes. Exactly. Thank you.
Now that's something
That's huge.
everyone
That's
forgets.
huge because that's
Britain has more oil than Syria.
People don't even understand that because they think, you know, oh well, the narrative now is we're going to intervene, right? And it's because we want oil. And it's like, don't be this stupid. Don't be this dumb and naive. The only reason we didn't intervene is because they didn't have oil.
Yeah.
The only reason we didn't go in and save these poor fucking humans from this fucking catastrophe is because there was because we weren't as altruistic as we project ourselves to be.
No, of course not. This is like this is the interesting thing about Russia is that they've actually got the real sort of weak hand of allies in the Middle East. You know, they've got Iran, which is basically isolated from everything, and then
not anymore. Syria, but they were.
And then they've got Syria, which is piss poor. You know, it's like, you know, they haven't got the Saudis. You know,
they got the shit hook of the Middle East. They didn't get any Sunni countries too. That's awkward.
Yeah, but yeah. So this is one thing people always seem to overlook. And then and like I said, I genuinely think that if Syria had oil, then we would have been a lot more proactive about Syria.
I really don't doubt that. And honestly, that makes me depressed because I'm. Just to give my views out, I'm very like morally interventionist. Like I don't think Rwanda was a good thing. I think we should be really ashamed that we did nothing at Rwanda, and I think we should be ashamed that we didn't help Syria when there was a time that we could help Syria, when we could have made Assad fix himself, or when we could have helped the FSA when they were a secular democracy gold.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's Islamist goals, and there's only one decent actor on the ground, and we need the other actors to be able to fight ISIS. So this is a very complicated and difficult issue right now, and it's depressing.
This is one of the things that, I mean, the fact that I think Assad is a Russian ally is, I mean, obviously it's a major diplomatic hurdle, but it's a real problem because if we're going to deal with anyone in the area, I would rather deal with Assad. You know, so he's at least rational and has interests. You know, he's not like,
well, so he's played a little bit larger of a role on ISIS than people understand.
Right, okay.
So in 2003 to 2009, he was literally busing jihadists into Iraq during the entire invasion. So he was just like, these guys are coming your way. Like you, and he was doing this
from. Where from?
So any foreign fighters that would come in to go into Iraq, you weren't allowed to just go into Iraq. So you had to go through Saudi Arabia or you had to go to Syria. Mm-hmm. And so any foreign fighters, he would literally he had a department in his government to handle the busing of jihadists into fucking Syria, Iraq.
To play devil's advocate here, though, I think a lot of that may have been for his own self-interest.
These are fair points, right?
To keep people, to keep people out of Syria.
You can say that, but there's no denying that he did that.
Yeah,
and
sure.
we asked him to stop. So he did stop in 2009, but in 2011, when this revolution got started, what did he do? Well, all those jihadists that we pushed back into Syria, he put them in jails. And at the beginning of the revolution, when the FSA and everybody was doing protests, and then it became a conflict that was armed because of a couple of protests where people got killed, and then Assad just cracked down on the protesters all around. They became rebel groups. He released jihadists. He released some of the worst jihadists that have ever been in existence. Three of them are top emirs in Islamic State right now, like of the Shura Council emirs.
I'm not familiar with the Shura Council.
These are the people that there's like 24 of them. They're the big guys behind Baghdadi. So
right.
al-Baghdadi is the leader, but if he dies, the Shura Council decides who's going to be next to take his
So
place.
can we compare the Shura Council with the Senate to Baghdadi's Caesar?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what it would be. These are the people that if you ever had a case to make, like, because there's some Baathists in there, there's some ex-Baathists from Saddam's regime in there,
Yeah.
And they're a part of the military departments conveniently, which makes a lot of sense about ISIS's success. These guys are doing the heavy lifting, all the stuff like that. If there's a case to be made that there might be some people in there that aren't specifically religious and are just using this religion as a tool to kind of use it to do this political project.
Game to play, isn't it? Jesus,
yeah,
Christ.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Well, they have to pretend to be religious, you know. They have to wear the black beards and they have to do everything. But
you know, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to suggest that maybe they are religious, and only because.
Yeah, the faith campaign did a lot too. So the faith campaign that Saddam did made a lot of Ba'athist Salafid jihadists or Salafidists. This is something that's been going on for a while. But so he released these jihadists out of prison at the start of the revolution, and it really poisoned the rebel well, because if you are not a part of the FSA, which was people that basically were a part of the Syrian Arab Army and then defected, then you were just some random nobody that didn't know what to do. And if your son had just had his balls electrocuted by a car battery from Assad's torture, you're going to look for the dude with the black beard, and you're going to want to go and kill some people. Sure. So this is, I wouldn't say like Assad's regime or Assad's government has to go, but I would say a majority of Syrians will not view Assad as a legitimate person anymore. He's not gonna. There's going to be sectarian problems. So either if we're committing to Syria as a whole, it can't be Assad.
Just to be specific though, it's not really about what Assad has done that's the problem, is it?
Well, I would argue it is. At least for me, it is.
Sorry, for them. I mean, not for the West. Because, like you say, it always comes down to the sectarian factors and the fact that he is happy to play ball as in a democracy ostensibly. Well,
for the jihadists, it's not about what he's done. For the locals, it's probably more about what he's done to them. The refugees, it's probably more about what he's done. The majority of refugees say they're running from Assad.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Let's talk about Assad, because I'm very loath to really believe anything I hear about Assad for a couple of reasons.
Even if you don't want to believe what you hear.
Let me just explain.
Oh, sorry,
no, it's okay. I interrupt all the time, so I don't mind being interrupted. But I just want to explain, just to make it clear why I say that. Okay, we've seen that I suspect it's probably the CIA or whoever. They've tried to frame him. The chemical weapons that were used by the rebels, the Americans instantly pinned on Assad. The UN sent in Dutch investigators, found that they actually had come from the rebels.
The first two were used by the rebels, and one was used by Assad. There's no,
Okay, yeah, but the thing is, the fact that this is, I mean, where did the rebels get chemical weapons?
Yeah, facilities, Deir ez-Zor and other places like that. Yeah,
but so it's this kind of instant thrust to pin this on Assad, even though it wasn't. The UN categorically states it wasn't him, at least the first time. So I'm dubious, because we have constantly seen propaganda. I mean, he's a Russian ally. He's someone the Americans have had on their plate for a long time to get rid of. I don't think he's any kind of good guy or anything. I don't think anyone in the Middle East is a good person, frankly, at this point. Obviously. The rulers, the people in charge. But I mean, I don't see. I'm just very wary of believing a lot of what we hear about.
Only believe what you can see, then. So what you can see, right?
Not necessarily. I'm happy to believe other things. It's just I feel that we should be very
hesitant.
Not generous, but you know what I mean. I don't want to just jump in with both feet on the condemn Assad, because we've seen what happens when that happens. It turns out that sometimes it's not true, and B, it's too easy, to say.
So you've got a very lack of trust in the the information about him because of the motives that you think America might have, and
Yeah,
that's
and the fact that
I'd
we've
rather
seen
you
them
be
lie.
that view than be like, oh, I think Assad is a good guy, and I think this is all framing and stuff like that.
I think if he, if the Middle East was a barrel of apples, he's the one that's only 3/4 rotted or something.
Okay.
The rest of them are entirely rotten.
So let's believe only what we can see. What we can see are things like unguided barrels, unguided bombs just being topped and lobbed out of helicopters with absolutely no guidance at all. And what that means is you can literally, I've got video of it. It's just flipping and falling with no accuracy. So this is indiscriminate bombing is what that's called. And that is directly against Geneva Convention, directly against a lot of things. We did do this in Vietnam. I'm not gonna
I wasn't gonna start pointing the finger. This is one thing that oh my god, every time you have a conversation, this person did this, yes, but these people,
I know,
sure, they did, but we're talking about this guy. So don't worry, I'm not playing comparative.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was just getting ready because I hear this whenever I argue these points.
I know, I really feel you, man, I really do.
Yeah.
Okay. So indiscriminate bombing of what areas was this?
So this will be rebel areas, and what sucks about this is it's rebel areas that aren't Al Qaeda or ISIS. So it's obviously anyone that he wants that could be viewed as legitimate, whether jihadist, Islamist, or previously democracy-based ones, ethnic protection groups. They're irrelevant to him. They bomb these areas from very high up in helicopters, and they'll just throw these fucking barrels out of the back end of a helicopter, and where they fall, that's your day. Now, this is something that's been going on for 5 years, still goes on, or hasn't been going on now since the ceasefire, very little.
Yeah.
But the worst of it really came from Russia, and we can say it's a tactic. We can say it's an effective tactic and a smart one because last week before the ceasefire, the 2 weeks ago, he did a big campaign on Aleppo, and he got the rebels, a lot of them out of Aleppo, but he also made 100,000 refugees at Turkey's border. So this is an effective tactic to really flood refugees into Europe, for him to be really vicious on the civilian life. I mean, I can show you some videos, man, that are really rough.
I've got no doubt that his forces can be, and I'm sure that he ordered them to go in and do terrible things. I've got no doubt,
Okay.
But
other people would say
I guess then I do actually want to slightly play comparative by saying this isn't really anything that's outrageous,
Sure. You can say that.
I mean, I guess what you've got.
4 hospitals, right? So how many times has America bombed 4 hospitals in one day?
Well, they bombed one hospital the other day, didn't they?
Yes, they did bomb one in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to laugh.
No. So let's compare that. They bombed one in Afghanistan with the ground forces intelligence, right? So they're telling them this is where it is. Us not doing our due diligence and not confirming anything. We didn't care. We were like, oh, they say they bomb this place, we're going to bomb this place.
Yeah.
Not do a flyby, not check to see if this is a civilian building or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of onus that should be on us. But we did take their intelligence at their word, and then we bombed it. Whereas Russia was going on its own intelligence, and it's 4. I can understand like 2 hospitals close to each other. Yeah. This is 4 separate hospitals. I mean,
well, don't get me wrong. I completely agree with you that this is clearly some sort of war crime.
Yeah.
There's no
debate. Yeah,
there's no debate there. But the problem, I think, is this is going to sound really cold. But states aren't moral actors, and you've really got. I think people spend a lot of time getting hung up on the morality of what states do rather than the ethics of what states do. And this is something that
That's a fair debating point, and I'm not going to get into that.
It's not worth getting into too much, but.
I would say that I want my state to be a moral actor, if that makes sense. I would want my state to try and minimize. Obviously, it might not.
I would like to try the same thing as well, though. And I'm not against the idea of trying to hold states to moral standards instead of ethical ones either. I'm really not against that.
Okay.
But it's I guess I guess I've been reading The Prince too much, and so I'm thinking more like Machiavellian ethics.
I mean, fair to you. You're being very, very honest here and candid, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, again, I don't agree with any of these things. But the thing is, it's not like America. I mean, America has killed so many people in Iraq, and it's just one of those things where it's like, it's horrible. It's really horrible. And then someone else is doing something similar, and suddenly we're pointing fingers. And I know that's not saying that what they're doing is right or anything like that, but it just, there's something about it that really sticks in my throat,
Yeah, I mean, you would want as much backlash about these things, and you would want much.
Yeah.
I mean, there's these things have multi layers, and so that's why I try and focus on solutions.
Yeah, like I said, there's no point pointing the finger necessarily.
We're not going to. Yeah, we're not.
And I'm not
we
trying
won't
to
agree
defend
on all of that. We won't be able to. We're not going to defend either the actions there. And this isn't to say the rebels don't bomb areas and blow up shit and stuff like that. So there's not like a moral equivalence, but there are things like that you can point to. Assad's torture. That's been categorized, classified. 6,300 people killed, and that's something that there's no denying. So we know that this person has been doing this, and and it's a huge issue. Whereas that's something the rebel groups have not done quite as extensively or categorically across the.
Well done, rebels. Well done.
Yeah, I know you've got the moral.
God, backpack all round.
Well, I'm just trying to give a tiny bit of a little bit of moral superiority that they might have left.
Yeah. No, but you're right. It's important to make these distinctions. And again, a lot of what we're talking about is going to be confused with the defense of these things and these people.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's not.
Whereas I honestly, I genuinely believe we are trying to just be factual.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's carry on.
Yeah, so solutions are balkanizing the area, making 3 states, and and I think this is the best to avoid all these problems ever happening in the future, ever happening in the future. I think this really is the key, and what I really love about this is it gives me a way to support a Kurdish state, and that's something that's really important to me.
Okay, let's talk about the Kurds then, because these are the sort of unsung heroes in this war against, well, all of it, really, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're hated by everybody, which is incredible. I mean, to be hated by rebels and Assad.
The Kurds have always had this kind of attitude in the Middle East. I mean, I was reading about Saladin years ago, and it was pointed out that, oh my God, and he was a Kurd. And I was like, so? Because I didn't know what a Kurd was, and then
is that the guy that went got Rome or Greek back from Israel?
No, he was the guy who fought Richard the Lionheart.
Oh, okay.
But the point is, it was made such a big deal out of because he was a Kurd, because he wasn't part of the majority dominant ethnic groups.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry, let's talk about the Kurds.
So the Kurds have two factions. This is a part of the Kurds aren't liked by Kurds. So the Kurds
likes anyone in the Middle East.
Yeah, the Kurds has 2 factions, which is Talbani and Barzani, which is Peshmerga Kurds and YPG PKK Kurds. Right. There's no doubting the YPG and PKK have affiliations with each other and sometimes have fighters from each other. And so Turkey has been oppressing the living shit out of these people, oppressing them, putting curfews on them. If you look at Turkey's southern eastern area, it looks like Syria. It's no different. Yeah. It really does. You're taking tanks into the middle of cities. Okay.
And let's just, in case anyone's aware, how many Kurds were gassed by Saddam Hussein?
Oh, what was it?
So hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. This is why we did this is what I thought was one of our best interventions. We had hundreds of thousands Kurds and Shias killed in 1 year in 1991, and we were like, fuck you, we're gonna put a no-fly zone, we're gonna fucking come in there. And then we did some awful things like the sanctions that killed 500,000 people, right? Yep. So we completely morally destroyed our superiority.
It was a great try though.
And well, what sucks is the sanctions were an idea by liberals at the time, to avoid a regime change. So if we had done regime change back then and made states, we might have not actually been where we are today.
Yep. And Rumsfeld knew though, that's the thing, didn't he?
Yeah.
You've seen the interview where he's like, well, if we go in and take down Assad, then, the Kurds want their own state. They take off a bit of Turkey and a bit of Syria, and it all goes to hell.
Oh, God forbid. God forbid they take land from these fucking tyrants, right?
Yeah, but the point is he knew it was going to happen. He knew all of this, They know they're not stupid. That's the thing. I think they're fucking malevolent.
I think a lot of them are stupid, but I think there are some that know. I think there are some that know, and the ones that know are. I mean, this would be a case of he wouldn't. People would brand him as a neocon, but a neocon is someone that I would consider that wants that has views like me, where it's like we want altruistic interventions with force, whereas these people are people like Henry Kissinger that are like neoliberals, that are real politics, that are willing to empower dictators, that are willing to
it's entirely Machiavellian.
Yeah, and do awful things. And no one's worse in foreign policy than Kissinger. I mean, that guy needs to be killed. Yeah,
he's unbelievable. He's the least empathetic man on earth.
Cyprus got invaded. He's an awful person, an awful human being.
But the thing is, this is why I mentioned Machiavellian ethics, because realistically, if you want dealing with power is not a moral thing. It's not something you can really be moral with. Power is going to hurt someone.
Yeah.
So Kissinger, for his whole life, he's been playing the great game, and I mean, he's brilliant at it. There's no getting around it.
He's alive still somehow.
Exactly. He's alive. I mean, imagine how many fucking people would like to kill Kissinger.
I'm just waiting to write like some vicious eulogy for him. Like I can't wait till that guy, because Hitchens wanted to do it. So
he did. He wrote a book about it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. It's the War Crimes of Henry Kissinger or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. So this is back then to the Kurds. This was the best thing that we had ever done. Was one of the proudest moments you could have as American, where Shias got slaughtered of this rebellion, and then Kurds got slaughtered in this rebellion. And we went over there, we put in a no-fly zone. The Kurds could leave Turkey and come into their land again in Iraq and avoid being oppressed by Saddam. Saddam was it was illegal for him to go into Kurdish territory now. And it still is to this day. The Iraqi army is not allowed to go into Kurdish territory. The Kurds have to self-rule, and that's how they've been keeping their autonomy, and they deserve independence, and I hope they get independence.
They've had a long history of being oppressed by almost everyone in the region.
And so a lot of the bad blood between Turkey and the Kurds right now, the Syrian and Turkish Kurds, which is YPG Kurds and PKK Kurds, is because of 100-year-old vendetta, essentially. The man that made Turkey is a man named Ataturk, and this man was more or less a Quranist secularist. And during the World War I, he abandoned the Ottoman Empire and said he was going to make his own Turkish state, and he asked for the Kurds to come and help him. The Kurds said, "We're going to stay loyal with the Ottomans and try and help them throughout this war." The Ottomans lost. Turkey made it a policy to suppress and oppress Kurds. They didn't even call them Kurds. Kurdish was banned in Turkey. Kurdish, you couldn't say the name Kurds. They were Turkish. What's it called? They would call them Turkish mountain Turks is what they would call them.
Right.
And so this is something that the oppression goes back a century of where it started, and it just has not ended. Is all that's happened. So they deserve a state, and this is something they've been impressed by Assad too. People don't know this. There was a protest in 2004. 86 people were killed that were all Kurds. They were protesting Assad's treatment. Kurds couldn't be civilians in Assad's regime. Kurds weren't allowed to have passports in Assad's regime. Kurds weren't treated fairly in Assad's regime. It's not like he treated Kurds nicely.
No.
People think the Kurds aren't anti-Assad. The PYD and YPG are officially on stance as we are against Assad. Now, they are seemingly allying in some areas, Haska, and in some areas in northern Aleppo, where they have the same targets as Assad, or they have a ceasefire with Assad and Haska specifically. But that is just irrelevant, honestly.
Yeah, the Kurds are pretty much enemies of everyone, because everyone has made the Kurds their enemy, because the Kurds, well, they didn't exactly get a lot out of the Sykes-Picot agreement, did they?
Yeah, no, they did not.
which I find it fascinating because they're a surprisingly large ethnic group in the Middle East. I mean, sort of eastern Turkey, northeastern Syria, and northern Iraq. It should really be its own state called Kurdistan, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
I mean, I can't. I just. I mean, I guess I'm guessing that originally I would have to look it up, but I'm guessing originally these borders were drawn not for arbitrary reasons, but to specifically keep the Middle East weak.
Maybe. I mean, that was Britain's choice. We didn't. There was a Kurdistan written in 1915, and then it was erased off of the map by Turkey, like the partition plan.
Right. Yeah.
Like Turkey literally was like, no, fuck you, no Kurds.
Yeah. So, but I agree with you that the balkanization of the area is probably it's
going to be the best route that we can do now.
Yeah.
But that's, I think, let me check through my list. I think that's pretty much every point I wanted to address. He did downplay, I don't know if he meant to, maybe it was an accident, but he talked about the siege, the hunger siege. One thing that he didn't mention is that Hezbollah was surrounding that siege of Medea and not letting people get in and out of that place. So so that's the only thing that he missed. Maybe he forgot. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, or it could have been that I steered the conversation or something. Yeah. Okay, so, but as a general rule, was his information fairly accurate or not fairly accurate, would you say?
I would say it wasn't that it was inaccurate, right? It's that the other part of it was kind of like he should have finished and added stuff to each point that he made.
Right.
So like, Turkey's buying oil from ISIS. True. Assad's buying oil from ISIS would be the next thing that you would follow up with that. But he kind of maybe
he wasn't aware. Maybe he wasn't aware.
Maybe. So like the information wasn't inaccurate. It's just that there was more information that he needed to add.
Right.
And and then he needed to maybe just add a couple points about the stuff. But it wasn't specifically inaccurate, with the exception of Al-Nusra and Al-Qaeda are allies. That is not true since 2013.
I think a lot of people don't know that. I mean,
it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. This is, I mean, they're fighting everywhere.
Well, that really changes a lot of things. I mean,
this is such a fundamental thing. So just to interrupt you, this is a fundamental thing because this is where the war of terrorism is coming from. So I don't know if you noticed this. Paris attack, what happened 2 days later? The attack in Mali, 67 were killed. They're competing on the streets of Europe and the Middle East with each other. One does a terrorist attack, the other calls on the arms. So let's go. We can't be outdone by these guys. Charlie Hebdo. Then the next day, the Denmark shootings, where the ISIS guys go and shoot up the Jewish cafes and stuff. I mean, these guys are competing synonymously back and forth on terrorism in the global stage.
Yeah. Now this is actually something I wanted to discuss with you. Who's the edgiest?
Oh, who's the edgiest? I think ISIS is, right? They blew up the airliner.
So, now, do ISIS hold any kind of, prestige for this? Because
you should see their video about Paris. Because after they did Paris, 2 months later, they made an English subtitled video where they show because we didn't know all the members that were involved. They ID'd every single member, and they showed us that these guys were all in Syria at one point, battle-hardened veterans that had fought in Syria and were combatants and sent as fake refugees with fake passports into Paris to commit a terror attack. It is the strongest fuck you to the West that you could ever really give. I don't think Al-Qaeda ever
impress any other potential jihadis, right?
Yeah. ISIS is the Coke of the jihadist world, as Jim Corca has said. And ISIS became Coke in 2 years. That's what's crazy.
Well, that's why I think the management of savagery is actually a really important document.
I got that right here. Let me get that. I'm gonna.
No, you honestly, I really think it really is. It's genius. I'm not gonna lie. It is genius. It's diabolical genius, but it's fucking brilliant. And it's one of those things that, I mean, it's you see this everywhere, right? You see this everywhere where someone invents like a new method of thinking, a new ideological stance, and it's powerful and it sweeps across. And this is why, and I know this is going to sound like a crazy comparison, and I'm not saying that feminists are anything like ISIS or anything like that, but it's more about
No, they're ISIS. I'll say it.
Yeah, you can say it. I'm not making that comparison specifically, but it's one thing you see this happening with intersectional feminism in feminism, right? The idea of white feminism or second wave feminism, any of the old feminisms, have been swept aside by the ideological strength of intersectionality. You know, there's feminists have nothing to argue against with it, and you know, and ISIS
You're saying
really,
it's one unanimous or one like unified movement of just whiny, bitchy people.
yeah, it is. It's really pathetic. It's insane.
That's incredible. It's the only unified movement on the planet of the history of the planet.
But it's incredible because it's so much more powerful than the other feminists. So you've got like the TERFs, the trans exclusionary radical feminists. They are marginalized. The SWERFs, the sex worker exclusionary radical feminists, they're getting to the side as well. It's this branch of the ideology has really rocketed in the past couple of years, and it really is similar to how ISIS have gone. And I think it's the strength of their ideological position that has allowed them to do it. And like you say, you know, they're the coke of the world. Of the jihadi world. They're the ones who are going to do the real nasty stuff.
Let me explain. So I look at all this stuff and I do research on all of this stuff. So this PDF you sent me, this is by a guy named William McCants. He wrote the biography about Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and it's wonderful. And it's great, and it's incredibly detailed. It's on Brookings. Brookings is a great corporation think tank, or think tank corporation. And so I have no idea where I was going.
It's all right. I just wanted to.
What were you just saying? Hold on, it's important. Yeah, the jihadists of the Coke world. Okay.
Yeah, the jihadists of the Coke world. That's interesting.
Okay, I'm beginning to eat my words.
Yeah, but yeah, I just thought it was interesting to say that, you know, seeing like a new ideology come out and make so many gains is not unusual at all. It's actually, you know, it's a pattern.
It's the ideology that's really making them over. The reason their propaganda is like super religious and in all of its facets is because they want these people that view the caliphate as legitimate. This is what gets them. If you're a Salafid Muslim, you view the caliphate as legitimate, it is an obligation to come to a caliph's call. This is why Saudis and others try to betray al-Baghdadi's caliphate as illegitimate, because that is the only way to stop Salafid people from joining it. What they're doing over there is they're showing propaganda that they're ruling in accordance with Sharia. The Sharia, if you don't rule in accordance and you have mujahideen that are doing fitna, people won't want to join it. You will lose recruits. It is a fact.
So can you define fitna for me quickly?
Fitna is shirk, sin. So it means drinking wine, sex, fornication, not doing the Sharia to the people that are doing crimes and stuff like that. This was such a problem that al-Nusra at one point, they had such a bad reputation. They had to make a video where they were destroying bottles of alcohol and making a river of alcohol down stairways to show that they were applying their Sharia, to show that there was no sin. And one of the fighters is saying, "There's no sin here. Come here, help us fight." It is a very big selling point, and ISIS is the first one to really capitalize on this ideology, because Al Qaeda was half doing it. Al Qaeda was saying, "We're weak. We're being oppressed. Come and help your Muslims that are being oppressed." ISIS tried saying that, and then they were like, "Nah, fuck it. We're strong. We're fucking strong, and we've got Sharia, and the time is now, and we're gonna meet you in Dabiq. Show us no respite. Come here and fight us. Come fight us without the planes. We'll kill you. We'll slaughter you all. We'll kill you wherever we find you." So this is the mentality of ISIS, and it's why they're so successful.
So this is obviously drawing. I mean, one of the things we've seen from the West is hundreds, probably thousands of Muslims traveling over to ISIS.
Yeah, that's what I was going to tell you. So ISIS is recruiting 4 times as many Al-Qaeda than Al-Qaeda in the West. ISIS gets about 4 Americans per 1 American that Al-Qaeda gets each month.
Right, okay.
So that's minute here, right? But that's a huge increase. That's a fucking 400% increase on Western fighters. Yeah. And so the most recruits they get are from Tunisia and Saudi Arabia, Syria, obvious places, but places that are very high in Salafid Islam. And it's important to make that distinction, because Salafid Islam really is the crucible of all this. Sufi Islam doesn't do this. Fucking regular Islam, regular general Sunni brand Islam isn't going to lead to this. It's only ones that take these hadiths one for one as laws, as real binding religious rulings that need to be applied onto your constituents.
Right. Okay. Well. Okay. I think what would be interesting to talk about then is the importance of a caliphate to Islam.
That came from a couple of hadiths where it says a man dying without a caliphate, without pledging bayah to a caliphate, it is as if he had died, like all his deeds were worthless, is basically what the hadith says. Another person that brings this into forelight is the man Sayyid Qutb, who back then was trying to bring back this caliphate because of these hadith verses. It's a reoccurring theme in the hadiths that a caliphate is needed. You can't have Sharia law without a caliphate. You can't be applying it correctly because
just to be clear, the caliph is obviously the head of a caliphate, and he's also what, head of the faith. He's
head of the faith. Yes, he is the emir of the imam.
He's basically the Pope of Islam, right?
That is the only way you can get a Pope of Islam. Correct. Yeah. It is the only way you can get any reforms.
Right. Okay. And so, is it accurate to say that without a caliph, then I mean, I don't want to advocate for a caliph, but it sounds like Islam is missing the caliph. You know.
So now that we are supporting ISIS,
well, you know, I'm not saying he's a legitimate caliph.
Yeah. So the
Baghdadi's probably not. I mean, look at him. Anyone who looks like Baghdadi can't possibly be a caliph.
Yeah. So the problem is, will a caliph be made under a moderate Islam? And I don't think there's room for a caliph under moderate Islam, because by definition, for you to be the caliph, you have to be from the tribe of Quraysh, which is a tribe of the Prophet Muhammad. And then you have to have all these other like legitimate things about you, your faith, you're a man, all that crap.
Yeah.
And so it's just not going to work with moderates. But yes, in what should have happened was the king of Saudi Arabia should have declared a caliphate. And the reason he couldn't is because he's not from the tribe of Quraysh. And the person that was the king of Jordan, who they didn't want to give a caliphate to because he would take over Saudi Arabia.
Sure.
And so they gave him this shitty little Jordan Hashemite kingdom where now he's king over there, but he is a slave to his Salafid majorities over there because they have had to stop bombing ISIS because of the lack of support over there, because of the fear of backlash of his Salafid majorities that they have over there. So it's this really complex, gross issue.
Yeah, but because I mean, one of the things and as far as I can tell, Islam has always had a caliph, right?
Mm-hmm. Almost all throughout its history, up into the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah, and I thought the Ottoman Sultan was the caliph.
Well, the Ottoman he was, but the Ottoman Empire got destroyed.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he claimed the title caliph, didn't he? And this is something that I always find people always look at me strangely when I say, look, right, Islam is really weak right now. You know,
yeah.
Islam has always been a monumentally powerful force all throughout history. You know, it's been insanely powerful, and we're suddenly in this position where there is no caliph for the first time in history. There is no head of the faith who can determine who is a Muslim and who is not a Muslim, and Islam physically is very weak. They don't have huge armies invading Europe, which is a rarity in a historical frame.
Yeah.
It's something that's never not happened. So there is clearly a great deal of confusion in the Muslim world because of this unique historical position it's in.
Yeah, that's a lot of the problem with who defines who and what is a Muslim, right? That's like a huge issue. And we either decide that anyone can pretty much define that, or no one can pretty much define that, and that a person following the Prophet is a Muslim. So it's a really difficult and complicated situation. But yeah, the caliph used to be the one that decided it, and hold on one second while my girlfriend gets her phone.
Yeah, no problem. So I mean, basically, when ISIS first came out, when they first broke out and everyone started talking about al-Baghdadi has declared himself a caliph, I was thinking, well, hell, that's actually kind of what Islam needs, is a legitimate caliph.
They need a legitimate caliph that isn't willing to like behead the kufr.
And then ISIS, and everyone found out what ISIS was about, and
the moment they declare caliph, Baghdadi's going to kill him. So
yeah. So it's not. I would like to think Baghdadi isn't going to become a legitimate caliph. But,
no, and if he does, we're fucked. So like really fucked. Like Saudi Arabia would join him, Turkey would join him. These places that have a lot of Salafi majorities and stuff like that would take over him.
I mean, it's actually a really scary proposition.
It's a huge it's horrific. Just entirely like
because we will end up going back to the days of Muslims invading people.
Yes.
We will go back to that.
They're coming for Rome. They're coming for Rome.
Yeah, and and the thing is, the worst part about this as well is what we're dealing with is ideas. We're not even dealing with we're not even dealing with armies.
Yeah, we're not dealing with something that we can stab in the face.
Yeah.
We can't even shoot it.
Because, like you say, there are huge. Well, there are large numbers of Salafis in the surrounding countries.
Yes.
It's not beyond the realms of possibility that eventually, there's
a scenario where they could all join ISIS. There is no doubt. There is some parallel universe where this could happen. A set of circumstances where this could happen. And those set of circumstances is the caliphate viewed as legitimate, the caliphate viewed as pure and as true and as powerful. And this would evoke the entire Salafi community, which is like 27 to like 50 million people total, which, that's a problem, right?
It's a huge problem.
But that is legitimately the most I could imagine falling head over heels for this caliphate mindset.
Sure, but then when you've got like 50 million people who
that's a real army, right?
Yeah. But the thing is, it's not even the fact that it's not even them. It's the people who then get strong armed into this.
The implications are incredibly horrific.
Yeah, exactly. And like you say, the things preventing it at the moment are the legitimacy of the caliphate, the purity of the caliphate. What was the other thing?
The actions, like he's on, like the best attacks on him have been him killing civilians on accident and stuff like that, and them trying to paint it as on purpose. Anything anything that goes against Sharia or anything that goes against the rules of the Qurans and the Hadith, anything that's scripturally in there that he breaks is something that makes him illegitimate. So he has to be following this truthfully.
But let's be honest with ourselves. He probably is, isn't he?
In a majority of cases, yes. With the exception of like the mass graves of women and children that recently they found over there in Sinjar, where they found one mass grave of women and children. But what they could say is, well, they were sick. They had. They could say America, but they could say they were sick and they had syphilis or HIV or something, and we didn't want them to kill our community, our ummah, and harm us.
I hate to say it, but graves can be propagandized out of existence. People forget, and
Turkey's done what? They haven't been denying a genocide for 100 years.
And so the only thing really that's holding people back from joining this en masse seems to be the question of legitimacy. And the thing is, right, historically, if you look at this from like a military history perspective, all it takes is one great victory, and then you've got legitimate. That's
true. I think they would have gotten it when they got Ramadi or Tikrit. But if they take over like Damascus, boy, with that. The last caliphate that did that was the Abbasid Caliphate. That is the caliphate that al-Baghdadi and Zarqawi are molding themselves after. Because this caliphate, what did they do? They announced at the same mosque that Baghdadi announced the caliphate. They announced that they're going to go at war with the other Muslims that were in Damascus, and they announced that these guys were teaching sins, and that these guys were doing fitna and shirk akbar and all these other religious nonsense. And they went in there and they fucking slaughtered them in Damascus, and they became the caliphate that controlled Damascus and Baghdad.
So you think the fall of Damascus would be
Damascus and Baghdad, but
And
the fall of
Baghdad.
Damascus would be
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, I agree, and not just like geopolitically. Like I think spiritually.
Ideology. It would be, yeah. Allah is behind this caliphate. He gave us the win for Damascus. That's
So that's basically my fear, is that they will gain a great victory that will legitimize them, and then we've got a real problem. And
yeah. Then it'll start small, but it'll get big quick, and
Yeah.
that's a huge problem.
And so, I mean, and the thing is though, right? There's a part of me that really, if I'm going to be honest,
You want it.
not that I want it, that I think that it's unfair of us to deny it to people who want it.
I agree so much with you. Like, it's
You know?
so funny because I want the most amount of people that this can attract, that they find this attractive, right? Like, that they really want this. I want them all to go and join ISIS, and I want us to eradicate that. I want that to be gone from the earth.
That's the thing, isn't it? Then we have a state. Then
Yeah.
we have an enemy. Then we have. I mean, and this is the thing, right? Like before, or early, in the early days of ISIS, I was like, look, guys, right? It's not the worst thing in the world because it would give us someone who has interests. If they have a caliph and he is supported by the various infrastructure and governance of the realm, he has soldiers, he has allies, he has money, he has income, he has investments in what he has, and so if you can threaten those investments, he can be brought to the table to deal with.
Oh no, he can't.
But
If he was a rational human being, yes, you'd be so accurate.
Yes, exactly. This was before I realized what ISIS were like.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was about to say because like there was a point where people were like, we should have peace talks with ISIS, and ISIS is like, we're open to peace talks. The beginning of the peace talks would be, you need to give us back Rome, Spain, Italy, like anything that's been ruled by an Ottoman or any caliph in the history of the world.
Yeah,
so it's like it's like a subcontinent.
Well, I mean, you've got to admire their moxie, haven't you? I mean,
yeah, they're really committed to it. They're beautiful about that.
Yeah, but this is the thing, right? If we could have chosen some, or not we, but if the Muslim world could have chosen some rational imam, some intellectual heavyweight in the
Mufti Menk.
Mufti Menk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't know who this guy is. Right?
Yeah, no, he's great.
I know who he is. He's actually, he seems like a really nice guy.
He's a very nice guy. He seems very tolerant for like 5 minutes. He's like, Islam is so peaceful. Sharia is like love, and then you make the love to the Sharia.
I've actually got a video planned on him, just not to attack him, because like I said, Mufti Menk, again, no one knows who this guy is, but he's very much. And I don't want to say apologist, because that's...
He's not an apologist because he really believes it.
Yeah, but it is the same as Christian apologia, though. It's not... He's trying to show that...
He's trying to save Salafite Islam from itself.
Yes, and that he's trying to show that there's a rational, a decent interpretation of these things that isn't terrorism and can live with the rest of the world, And, if someone like that could have been declared a caliph, then... I think that's
we'd be in really good shape. Yeah, we would be okay.
The Muslim world actually needs, a wise man, someone who thinks of, the best interests of Islam rather than trying to impose Islam.
Well, let's just give Mufti like a couple of AKs and he'll be on his way, right? He can do this.
Like I said, he seems like a bit of a soft touch, to be honest, man. I think ISIS would behead him pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so too. But like, it'd be fun.
Yeah,
it'd be, like a cool thing to watch. We could put like GoPro on his head.
Yeah,
American warrior.
I genuinely quite like him, to be honest.
No, he's really good. And you know who else is a really good apologist, or not apologist, but like a really good like defender of the Salafite ideology is the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia.
I don't know.
Hold on. So the Saudi minister says basically the same shit as Mufti Menk. And he's like, my religion says, unto your religion to you, and unto my religion unto me. And he doesn't mention like the part before that where he's like, kill the polytheist.
And the abrogation and whatnot. And it's
yeah, yeah. But so like they do a really good like trying to make
an
this,
apologism.
like, not an awful thing.
Yeah, not all Muslims.
Hold on, I gotta give my girlfriend money so she can spend it.
Yeah, no, I know that. I know that feeling, man.
How much is that?
Hold on.
That's it.
You see this? You see this?
Come on.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Sorry.
Okay. How's it going, chat? I hope people have learned that not all Muslims are evil. Oh, come on. Apologists aren't just as bad as the extremists.
Oh my God! Wait, what? Let's behead him. No, we're beheading him.
Someone in the chat's like, the apologists is just as bad as the extremists. Come on, they're not.
No,
hey, Lego,
worse.
we're gonna have to organize a chat sometime, Lego. Lego the Gach. I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry.
Oh, Lalo's in there?
Yeah, Lalo. Yeah.
I don't like him.
Why not?
He's brown.
Oh, right. Good reason.
Yeah.
He seems like a really sound guy. I mean, he's on my list.
No, he's a great fan
like
too.
This one. Because I saw him on the Rubin Report the other day, and I was quite impressed.
Yeah. You should see. I photoshopped a picture of him on Osama bin Laden yesterday.
I like any sentence that begins with "I photoshopped."
Well, he looks like the legitimate caliph that I think we need.
Yeah.
So I think it would be good to talk to our future caliph, and he is Palestinian, so he probably is a terrorist. So
I don't think we need the probably then.
You don't. But I'm trying to be racist, and you're making it hard, aren't you?
Sorry, carry on.
Thank you.
Go on, Jew, attack Palestinians.
Okay, so the Islamic world does need someone like Mufti Menk. What they also need to be willing to attack the hadiths, and I think there's a really easy way they can do this. How about you say the only word that was written by Muhammad, peace be upon him, right? Peace and blessings be upon him,
Sure.
is the Quran. And this is something that it's the only thing that's actually narrated by him. And I don't know if it was written by him because he was illiterate, because that makes sense.
Definitely wasn't written by him.
Yeah, but it's the only true word that's out there. And then everything else that came 250 years after there, just deemed it.
Right. No. So I'm wrong then. Right. Okay. No, that's fine. Right. So I was under the impression that that's what ISIS were doing. But you're right. Like you said, they are actually taking the hadiths as... Oh,
yes. Yeah, right, they take these hadiths as just as legitimate as the Quran. Just as legitimate, if not more in some cases.
Okay, so they are not the Protestant Reformation of Islam. What is needed is the Protestant Reformation of Islam.
Yes.
To write the hadiths. So, because as I understand it, in the 8th century or something, there was a chap who basically collected something like 10,000 hadiths and then whittled it down to about 600 or something.
Yes, yeah. Actually, he made it into a book and he categorized it. And Anwar al-Awlaki has a 21-hour part series that I've listened to 7 hours of, explaining, oh my God, they have the best revelations. Oh my God. Oh my God. You've got to hear this stuff.
But this in itself throws the hadith surely into massive doubt. I mean, how can you be sure Muhammad said any of this? It's like...
Yeah, no, there's no way that they can know any of that, and they just say al-Bukhari or Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim were the ones that are most trusted, and they've said there's a great story in Sahih Bukhari about the Prophet being sick one day, and then he had to drink camel piss and sheep's milk, and
God,
yeah, and it made it better. No, this is great. No, this story gets so good, you have no idea. So it makes him better. And then one day, one of his these villagers come into his town and they're sick, and he say, "Well, help yourself to my camels and my sheep." So they help themselves to camel piss and sheep's milk, and then they let the sheeps and camels go out of their barricade, and they let them run free. The Prophet hears about this the next day. He sends his people to go get the sheep and camels back, and then he sent people to go get the people that did this. And to the people that did this, he cuts their arms and legs off, and cuts their tongue off, and sears their tongue, and brands their eyes. And when they call for water, he did not give it to them. That's the story. In Sahih Bukhari.
They were thirsty as well. Jesus.
Yeah. Well, when you're thirsty after you get your tongue seared, he doesn't give you water.
What a bitch.
Yeah, I know, right? It just seems so vindictive. Like,
Yeah, that's just.
this is rude. Like,
But Muhammad is the perfect man, so I mean, you know, everything he did.
yeah. Well, that's what I'm going to do next time someone's thirsty. It's just like brand their tongue and eyes and never give them water. So these are the stories that are in the hadiths, and these are like, the end times. You're going to sweat according to your deeds. So some of you might sweat a little bit and make a little puddle, but some of you might make an ocean of sweat and you'll drown in it. And the righteous will be under the shade of palm trees from their good deeds. And the reason you sweat according to your deeds is on the day of judgment, the sun is going to come within 2 miles of the earth.
Whoa, fucking hell! I mean, you're going to sweat. I'm not going to lie. There's going to be a lot of sweating involved. I find that very interesting, though, and this is another thing about the Quran that I really love. I've read overviews and descriptions of what happens in the Quran. This is why I'm reading. This is why I haven't actually read it. Is because I've read about it from third parties.
Yeah.
And one of the things that cracks me up about the Quran is how localized it is. You know.
How everything is about tangible things that are around them.
Yeah, absolutely. And but they're like, no, this is a universal religion. So, okay, well, do you think if you converted a bunch of Eskimos to Islam, they'll be sat in the North Pole going, well, I mean, we'll be sat under the shade of palm trees, lads. We'll be fine.
We're going to be fine, man.
Yeah, we're good Muslims.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, it's completely localized. And what's even more interesting is everything's within these like tangible outcomes. So, oh my God, yes, you're going to love this. So on the day of judgment, after God starts judging everyone and starts sending people into hellfire and into heaven, the first thing he's going to do is he's going to send the sun and the moon to hell. This is the first thing. Because
what?
Yes, exactly. So Al-Laki literally says this. He goes, now you might be thinking to yourself, like, what did the sun and the moon do? Why is Allah punishing the sun? Why is Allah punishing the sun and the moon? Well, the reason for this is anything that had been worshipped as a normal god is sent to the hellfire. Yeah. And so he literally says that. And this is how we know how big the hellfire is. And because of this, the depth of hellfire has to be at least the sun size, if not more. And then he talks about this other great thing where he says there's a hadith where the Prophet and the companions were sitting down and talking with each other, and all of a sudden they hear a loud poof, like a bang. And so the Prophet goes, do you guys know what that was? And they go, Prophet, you know best. And he goes, that was a rock that had just fallen 70 years into the hellfire and it just reached the ground.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So it's straight out of his ass. That's marvelous.
Just absolutely out of his ass. Absolutely out of it. It's like dealing with a habitual pathological liar.
Yeah.
Says something immediately.
Didn't he basically sort of pull these sort of inspirations from Allah out of his ass when like his wives were disobeying him or something?
Oh yeah. There's obviously those ones, but these are the best because this is a story. He's just hanging with his friends and he heard a noise that they didn't know what it was. Oh, that was that rock. That's how we know. And Al-Laki literally he says this. He goes, "This next hadith is a miracle. Nobody knows how this happened." So it's like he deems it authentic and proved and it's a tangible thing that happened. And
it's so similar to the biblical literalists in America.
Yes, exactly. No, it's exactly like that. Al-Laki was very like that. Obviously, a bit more crazy and terrorist.
I mean, so you're going to send the sun and the moon to hell.
Well,
so people in hell are going to be enjoying sunny days.
Yes. Yeah, I haven't even gotten there. So the people of hellfire will have clothes, okay?
Yeah.
And the clothes will be molten copper. So your clothes are going to be you're going to be covered in molten copper at all time. Now you're going to want shade sometimes. You're hot, so the only shade you're going to get is the gas from the fire, the fumes of smoke. But when you go into it, you choke. And the food of hellfire will be like iron brass in your stomach, like molten iron brass in the stomach. The water of hellfire, you'll get water. Your water will be boiling water into your face. The breeze, you might want to cool down with a breeze. You'll get the scorching desert breeze of dry, humid air into your face.
Honestly, I think at this point a breeze is not going to help much. This cup of clothing, it's terrible. This molten food, it's awful. But anything for a light breeze.
Dude, we haven't even. This gets so good. So you're gonna love this next one. So when you go to hell, your body, the layers of skin, they become 156 meters thick. Okay.
What?
And this is because the sensitivity for pain is in the skin, and Allah knows this, and Allah wants to punish you harshly. So Allah gives you more skin depth so that you might be receiving more pain. But he also
that Allah isn't actually the devil.
I know, right? You would think that. So the next thing he does is he also expands your body. He expands your body so big that when you're sitting down, your ass reaches from Mecca and Medina. Okay, the distance
I'm
between.
starting to think he might actually be Willy Wonka. What the fuck?
These are all authentic hadiths. I'm not giving you any lies right now. This is from Anwar al-Laki. So the next thing you get are like the other food you get in hellfire is the pus and sweat of other people.
That's just gross.
Yeah. That's the limit, right? Like I can't handle that.
The eternal burning, I'll probably get used to. Ugh.
Well, no. So every day is hotter in hellfire until the end of eternity. This is. They say you never get used to it. You don't ever get to get used to this kind of pain. And what I love about this is, what is the fuel of hellfire? It's coal.
People.
It's just it's people and coal. You're throwing more coal into the fire. Never mind the sun, right? The sun that's in hellfire.
Don't worry about that.
That's not what's doing the heat. It's actually just the coal, and everyone's got coal, and they're burning each other, and everybody's having a competition to burn each other more. It's ludicrous on like levels. But what's great is heaven is just like this, right? So heaven is described in the same
except dark.
It's the same except but nicer. So when you go to heaven, the first thing you're going to do is there's going to be these massive gates, but it's going to be a single file line because that makes sense.
Sure. We've got all eternity.
Yeah, and it's going to go all the way back for like an eternity in length. And once you get there, the first thing Allah is going to give you is wine and ginger to quench your thirst.
And you're like, God, I'm a Muslim. I can't have this.
Yeah, that's the greatest. It's so funny. Yeah, wine and ginger to quench your thirst. And
ginger going to quench your thirst?
I don't know. The delicacy of heaven is the liver of a blue whale is what is described. That is the delicacy of heaven.
I hate liver.
Yeah. Really? I hate liver. That's the response.
I hate liver. I'm not allowed to drink this, and it's dark. The sun's in hell. Yeah.
Okay. Hold on one second. I'm going to continue.
Sure. So there are a lot of people in the chat who better get some sun cream. Frankly, don't think that this isn't going to happen to you, and no whale liver for you either.
Okay, so we're in heaven, right? And the first thing you need to know about heaven is it's the size of the earth and the heavens combined. So
right, okay.
Yeah,
so
it's very big, but it's contextually big. It's the heavens and the earth. The heaven meaning the sky. So it's like the earth twice. So that's the limit size of heaven. Okay. The next thing you need to know is that when you're in heaven, it's called Jannah. And why is it called Jannah? Jannah means green, and it's going to be covered with trees, and it's going to be covered with nice and fruitful things. One of the first things you'll get in heaven is your palace. Everybody's going to get a palace, and who's going to be giving you your palace? Muhammad, peace be upon him, is going to be giving you your palace. When you go to your palace, you're going to often you're going to have to go shopping and stuff like that. And what'll happen is as you stay in heaven more, you're going to feel more holy. You're going to feel more attracted to people because of the auras they get. And the auras they get are from running into people like Jesus and Moses and Muhammad at the supermarket. They're good. I'm serious.
So Like, you'll never guess who I met when I was out shopping today. Who?
Matt
Moses.
Muhammad, yeah. He's like, you look more attractive today. He's like, oh, it must be Muhammad Zora on me. Like, this is so great.
So there are divine shopkeepers.
Yeah, there was bazaars back in the day. So this is like you went to the bazaar, and when you went there, you ran into a Muhammad or you ran into Moses.
But aren't they worried about like capitalism?
No. They behead capitalism. Don't be stupid.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you're gonna get fucking. They must have some sort of currency in heaven. If
No. There's no currency. Everything you want, you just take. It's infinite. So like, you don't sweat in heaven. You don't sweat in heaven. You don't shit in heaven.
Again, I love that. That's the issue. They sweat because they come from a desert. The Inuit Muslims are like, yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah. The Eskimo Muslims are like, am I warm in heaven? Is heaven warm?
Yeah, please.
Hellfire sounds. The sun's gonna be there. I'd like to maybe.
Yeah.
So you go to heaven and your Muhammad's giving you auras, and then what else? Oh, the pebbles and the rocks on the ground, those are made out of sapphires, rubies, and diamonds. So these are
making them completely worthless.
Yeah. But to God be the glory. Come on. Sure. And then the fucking what was I just talking about? The fucking. Go to heaven, Prophet Muhammad, he's there. Oh, fucking hell. Oh, you don't sweat, you don't shit, and you can eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, and you'll never get full.
This sounds like something they say to children.
This does, right? This
you don't do icky stuff in heaven.
Until you get to the best part. You can fuck and fuck and fuck, and you never get tired. Oops.
Now it sounds like something they're selling to teenage boys.
Yeah. So you never get tired, you never sweat. You don't sweat, like you don't poo. Everything you eat turns into energy seamlessly. So you're like an atomic fusion,
marvelous,
perfect nuclear reactor in your gastric system, I guess.
That's incredible. God can do anything. Why didn't he do this on Earth?
I know, right? That would have been great. I would love to.
But then he would have nothing for heaven, would he?
No. Well, you're not allowed to actually eat with silver or gold utensils, according to Sahih Bukhari, because these are for the afterlife and the kuffar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a very reasonable hadith that you need to. You also aren't allowed to touch your genitals with your right hand while urinating. You can't do that.
God, I've never even thought about that.
Yeah, you can't. No, it's against the rules. You can touch your genitals with your left hand. So
that's okay.
Yeah,
I guess I'll have to learn to be ambidextrous when I'm wanking.
You have to drink with your right hand. It's every aspect of your life is covered in a hadith. Every single one.
Weird. That's just bizarre.
What foot you put in the shower? Left one. You have to put when you go to take a bathe. You have to put your left foot in the shower first. So it's all encompassing, all inclusive.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like baffled that anyone would take the time to do this. But I suppose when all you do, if you're like a Quranic scholar and a Hadith scholar, all you do is talk about like Islam.
Yeah, also this is what happens. Like, so when you go deeply into researching ISIS, you want to learn its methodology. So one thing that I found out that was really interesting, Boko Haram uses female suicide bombers. That when you think about that, that goes against everything they stand for, right? Yeah, females are supposed to stay out of the war. Well, females are allowed to defend in wars in very extremely limited cases. But the most interesting is a female isn't considered like in a war situation. It's not the same as a war when you're instilling fear in the heart of the kuffar. This is a different action besides war. So terrorism, you're allowed to use females for. This is why in Paris, ISIS had a female suicide bomber. This is why Boko Haram is allowed to use female suicide bombers to engage in terrorism. But they are not allowed to have female fighters on the front lines and child fighters. So this is the set of like rules that are differentiating. And at first glance, it's very easy to go and like miss over it. But once you really have to commit yourself to reading and learning about their religion, and that's when these things really start making light to you, where you really see they're keeping the post-Islamic artifacts and stuff like that. They keep all that stuff, but the pre-Islamic they'll destroy. And this is strictly because of the Umayyads and the other caliphates of what they had done.
To be fair, all the rock on Earth is probably going to hell because it was used as
that's right. Good idea. Oh man, I forgot to tell you. So the pagans, how they worshipped idols, right?
Yeah.
Well, in hell, on the Day of Judgment, those idols, those rocks, will be allowed to talk. And so God is going to ask you to talk to your idols. And what are the idols are going to say? They're like, mate, I'm just a rock. I didn't know you were praying to me. I'm just a rock. That's literally, and he's like, he's like, to the pagans, this is an insult to them. They're really going to be mad when they go, this man I've been praying to my whole life, this rock, and now he doesn't even recognize me. And it's like,
this rock has forsaken me.
Yes, this rock has forsaken me. And what's great is, so in like the Day of Judgment, oh man, the Day of Judgment is the best. It really is the best.
Tell me about the Day of Judgment.
So on the Day of Judgment, everybody's going to be there. Like Muhammad's going to be there. He's going to be judged, right? The Jesus is going to be there. And so the whole ummah is in fear of Allah's judgment, and fear, so much in fear that a newborn baby on the Day of Judgment that had died when he was young, he's sinless, right? He's perfectly sinless, nothing. He's going straight to heaven. His fear for that day, when he leaves his body, his hair will turn gray out of the stress of the fear on the Day of Judgment. Okay? What is going to happen to me if on the Day of Judgment the baby's hair will turn gray from stress?
Well, presumably you'd end up like crumbling into dust or something.
Yeah. So the next thing that's going to happen is out of anticipation, you're going to, you know how people like bite their fingernails, right?
Sure.
So if you're a disbeliever, on that day, you're going to start biting your fingers, and then you're going to put your hands into your mouth, and you're going to crush and destroy your hands all the way up until you reach your elbows.
And that's only because I can't go any further, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's because they just don't.
Yeah, that's the limit, right? That's.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I do love end time prophecies. I really do.
I love how accurate. He's like, well, of course you can't go past your elbows, stupid. Like,
look, you try licking your elbow. How are you going to bite through?
God, don't be so dumb. So yeah, you can only get up to your elbows, and then on the day,
the chat's like, why stop at elbows? Because you can't chew your.
You can't reach. What are you, dumb? God.
Duh.
Hell.
Read a hadith, for Christ's sake.
Go educate yourself, please.
Educate yourself, Kafir.
Yeah. We've become ISIS. This is great. So on the Day of Judgment, right? Everyone's going to be going to the prophets. So they're going to start with Moses and Abraham, and every one of them is going to be like this one little thing they did where they were like, I don't know. I can't speak for the ummah. I'm afraid. I've got myself to worry about. And they're going to say, myself, nefsi. Mm-hmm. And so they do all that until they get to Muhammad. And Muhammad's like, I will speak for the ummah. And I will be there for Allah's judgment upon you. Of course, he's like a superhero. Of course,
he's perfect.
In a sake of religious pragmatism, this is interesting. So once everybody gets judged, everybody's reborn. And everybody's reborn like a plant. Literally like a plant. They grow out of the ground. I don't know what the fuck this means, but this happens. And so there were exceptions to people on the Day of Judgment. There are like three people that...
Just to interrupt, sorry, is this happening on Earth or in heaven?
Yeah, I think it's on heaven, because Earth on the Day of Judgment will be flattened, and then the ocean will be exploding and on fire at the same time.
So Muslims confirmed flat earthers as well.
Yeah, well, no, they become flat earthers, right?
Yeah, to be flat earthers.
Yeah, and he talks. Al-Awlaki does this thing where he brings it up like in a scientific point of view. He's like, we know the ocean will be nuclear fissioning. How? Because the Quran says that's exploding and it is on fire at the same time. What has done this in history? Only the nuclear bombs. And we know that when the Earth is flattened, there will be no gravity. There will be no center of gravity. So everybody will be flying all over the place, and the oceans will be on fire. Like fucking, it's like he's trying to
atheists.
Yeah, it's like fucking roller coaster tycoon, but with religion.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is taking place in heaven.
Yeah, so this is taking place in heaven. So everyone's regrown as like as a plant, and in this, what's great is there's like this religious pragmatism where they don't want Muslims saying that Muslims are the best and that like their prophets are the best, because Moses is a really important prophet. Sure. And the only story of Jonah is the only story that's not that's in one piece in the Quran. It's the only story that's not broken up. And so they say that there's exceptions on the Day of Judgment. And so Muhammad, when he's going on his way to be on next to Allah on his throne, he will notice on his way there who the prophet Moses was there before him. How did he get there? If Muhammad was the first person reborn, how did Moses get there before him? Wallahi, we don't know. By God, we don't know. So it's like, yeah, it's like this religious pragmatism for no fucking reason. It's just like, Jews, you guys are still cool. Don't worry, we're still cool, us and Jews. It's like it's literally like a shout out in a hadith or something. It makes no sense.
I love it. I love it's a name drop. That's brilliant. That's God. I swear to you. And the thing is, right? If there are any Muslims listening for whatever reason,
fuck you.
Fuck yeah. This could quite easily be applied to Book of Revelation. You know?
Yeah. It's equally as absurd, but
it's in fact it's absurd in completely different ways. I absolutely love the animals around God's throne constantly praising God's praises. You know, constantly praising.
That's all
God.
we're born for. Is we're just God.
I can't imagine the phenomenal insecurity needed to require that. You know,
Yeah.
You're
The micro penis is really it's
the
difficult.
all-powerful deity of the world, but you've got a few hang-ups and you're not quite sure about yourself. So you need like constant motivational speaking projected at you. The whole time, it's just like fucking hell.
It's funny. The father of Muhammad, like father figure, is Abu Talib. He's his uncle, and he's a pagan, and he dies a pagan. And it is known as the year of sorrow for Muhammad. He writes about it, or it's said he's written about it, or whatever. And so on this year, like it's sad because Abu Talib was like the protector of Muhammad. He put his neck on the line for Islam. Basically, put his neck on the line. Like without him, Islam does not exist, right? Mm-hmm. So he's like the biggest figure that is just incredible, and he's a kafir. And so everybody's like, what about in the hellfire? Does Allah make like an exception for your uncle? He's like, well, Allah let me intervene for my uncle, and I went down to hellfire, and he was at the lowest level of hellfire, and I picked him up and I rose him to the highest level of hellfire, where only his ankles were touching the lake of hellfire. And that was enough heat to make his brain boil.
Kind of seems like it was a waste of time, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, wasn't it?
I mean, yeah. Just saying, you know.
Yeah, we missed out too. When all your skin has been burned and you know eviscerated, you get new skin. Allah gives you new skin. You need it for.
That's just evil. That's just, you know, your skin's been burnt off. So here's some new skin so it can be burned off again. Thanks.
Yeah, and your ass reaches Mecca and Medina. So I mean, this is like chemical warfare at this point.
Yeah, and I love that the Quran begins with, you know, Allah the All Merciful.
There's only one chapter where that's not true too. It's chapter 11, Al-Tawbah, and it's the chapter of war. It's Surah 11. It's
really?
good.
I haven't got that yet.
Yeah, it's the only chapter in the Quran that begins without to peace and blessings of God's mercy. And so in the Day of Judgment, there's also going to be the Shaheed, or the Shahada, the martyrs of Islam. Mm-hmm. And so Muhammad needed to get martyrs of Islam. And so when he was arguing with Allah, it first was 70,000. And Allah was like, isn't your ummah supposed to be like super big and stuff? Like he's arguing with God. Mm-hmm. And he's like, okay, fine. I'll give you 70,000 for each of the individual 70,000. So it's like 4 billion.
Sure.
It's basically 4 billion I think it's 4 billion people will be allowed to be martyrs. And so the martyrs are revered on the Day of Judgment. They get to literally go past it. So on the Day of Judgment, the martyrs have like a special crown that's noble, and they're sitting up near the throne near Allah, and they're watching over as everybody else is dealing with like they're like cheering on the fear. Like everyone's being in fear. They're like enjoying everybody's torment, basically. And these are the martyrs of Islam. This is the suicide bomber. Like this is the guy that went out of his way to like kill like 50 Shia guys.
Presumably he's just sopping wet from all that virgin juice he's been drowning.
We haven't even gotten to the hootie. Like wait, just calm down.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump the gun there.
Yeah, spoilers.
Yeah, sorry everyone, just in case you didn't know.
What I love about the concept of the huri is they're made specifically for having sex. They're not like they're these weird angel constructs that aren't
I thought
people.
they were real women.
No, that's what I thought too. But I was like, what? Like a shitty like afterlife, right? So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you live with like Mohammed bin fuck you,
Yeah, and have to
then
fuck a sweaty Arab. For the
yeah,
rest of the
for the
time.
well, he's not sweaty. You don't sweat.
Well, no, that's a good point. He's not.
Yeah, no.
I'm such a bigot. Come on.
So
Just
yeah,
a very handsome, well-groomed Arab. Then it doesn't sound so bad now.
yeah. So they're constructs. My favorite part is on the Day of Judgment. There are also going to be another set of people there that are with you, and they're mentioned all the time in the Quran, but nobody mentions them. And they are the who? Jinn. The jinn.
Oh yeah,
the genies. The fucking genies. There
What
are
do they
going to
do?
be genies. So anytime you have like a dream and it's like advancing you towards like bad things, that's the
Mhm.
jinn. They made that. That's specifically in the first paraphrases of the fucking Quran. They're like, Allah made the jinn and the humans to worship Allah. Like it's literally like when you have to go back into your story and add someone throughout the whole story for no fucking reason to like make the story make sense. That's what the jinn is. It's just like this
Okay,
big.
That's a really interesting because the jinn aren't angels, are they?
No, they're literally they're just like humans. They have their own conscience. They have their own choices. They can do they have their own religion. They can worship Islam. But they're autonomous beings. They're the only other autonomous beings.
Right, but I mean, they're not like a different tribe in Arabia, are they, or anything like that? They're like
no.
they're
These
like
are literal Aladdin genies. This is I'm not kidding about that.
right. Okay,
It translates into genie.
Right. Okay, just to make sure that I was following correctly. So so there are basically pixies in the desert, and
Yeah.
they've got their own religion, and they can be Muslim, obviously. Probably.
Yeah.
Are. I mean,
Everyone can be Muslim. There's no excuse.
yeah, yeah, it's mandatory. And okay, so what are the genies doing? What are the jinn doing in heaven?
The same thing as you. It's
being judged.
Yeah. The judge. They get to have their own huri jinns, I guess. I don't. They didn't mention what the jinns would be fucking in the hadiths.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, what happens to the jinn martyrs? Presumably, there are jinn martyrs. I mean,
I imagine there have to be, and I think they would just refer to them as shaheeds. There's no reason for them to make any distinction about that.
sure, that'd be racist.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be absurd. I mean, that would be absurd.
This
You
is
know
the most fun I've ever had talking about Islam. I had no idea it was this funny.
Oh my god, it's fucking precious, man. It's fucking precious. So what I love about this is the cognitive dissonance these people have. Like, so the Sunnis and the Shias are having like a fight with each other. And what's the fight about? Well, it's the sectarian choices. So the Shia believe Abu Bakr, Umar, and the other caliph, I forget his fucking name, and Aisha, the wife of the caliph of Muhammad, were all assholes and all like not real Muslims, and they had a real Quran that's in a cave with the 12 imams. The 12th imam will have the real Quran in the cave and with rivers of milk and honey in it. And the Sunnis are like, this is ridiculous. I mean, if there is anything more ridiculous than this, tell me about it. Dude, you believe in fucking jinns and huris and like you're gonna be fucking telling me about what's ridiculous? Like, you believe in a hadith that talks about a rock falling for 70 years and then Muhammad just heard this noise in the middle of fucking nowhere. I mean, yeah. Oh, that's a rock. That's the rock. No, I mean, it's the cognitive dissonance in this, and what the fuck is going on? Like,
so let's talk about the Hurries then, because I like I said, I really just thought it was just women that I don't know were going to be assigned.
That's what I thought too. So they're like actual constructs, right? And then
what are they made out of?
I don't know. If
I'm picturing like a fleshlight, basically.
Well, yeah, they are flesh-like, but they don't say like they're made out of
fleshlight, like the fucking sex toy.
Oh,
that's basically what I mean. Like
projecting.
This
That's
is what they sound like, you know.
Well,
Like,
that's what they're gonna be like. You know, it's
they're
funny.
made by the Japanese or something. I don't know.
It's China. China was over there. They got all our jobs. They made all our huris. China. Trump is on the warpath for China, man. Be ready for China war when Trump gets in office.
But seriously, I mean, are Muslims looking at Japan going, well, I mean, they've almost got the Huris, right? So, you know, I mean,
so these things are like constructs that Allah made just for you, for your pleasure, and they're in like a pearl, is what it's described. It's a big pearl. So I don't know if that's like a clitoris reference, but yeah,
good question.
yeah. And so what's interesting is like the rest of your life in heaven is just like gangbangs with your wife, basically, because your wife is still going to be more attractive to you than the Houris.
If I was at a gangbang, the last person I'd want there is my wife.
That's what you would think, right? But like apparently that aura, you remember I was telling you the aura of like Muhammad and Musa and all
everyone's
they make him like
lovey-dovey.
want to fuck him more. It's because of Muhammad.
This
And
is sounding like a hippie commune.
it's so fucking ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
But I mean, do these Houris, can they speak?
Yeah, they could speak. I'm sure they have thoughts too, but nobody cares. They're like, they're like the blacks or something. Nobody really wants them. But
So what we're saying then is Islamic heaven is incredibly misogynist.
yeah, it's a feminist's like nightmare.
But there are going to be feminists probably there. I mean, there are
Hopefully, the
Muslims.
feminists are Houris, right? Like, hopefully,
Oh my god, that would be hilarious.
it'd be like this righteous indignation of like all these feminist women becoming sex slaves for the rest of eternity. Oh,
That would be hilarious, but no, I think what we'll end up with are the constructs, the Houris, whose sole mission is to have sex with people. And so, I mean, if you look at things like Houri, morality, it would be immoral for them not to have sex. Like it would be immoral for you to not give your kids food.
Yes.
It's
Oh,
you know.
I
It's
forgot to
not-
mention in heaven you're allowed to do like whatever you want to do. So like this sheikh that did this talk, I have it saved. I love because I always have to go back and listen to it because I forget a lot of it. But he talks about like one man asked me, "Hey brother, I like to have children. I want to have children in heaven." He's like, "Wallahi, your wife will go through her pregnancy in a week, and she'll be at her same size in another week." And it's like, why not a day? Why not like
2 weeks, man?
yeah, what is this arbitrary
Kid
like?
now.
Yeah, these arbitrary set of lines. It makes no sense.
That's
It's-
amazing.
Yeah, it's so.
So the Houris can talk, they can think, they just like I don't know, must really like sex, I suppose.
Yeah, well, they like pleasing you because you're so righteous.
Yeah, it's like you like to go out for a meal. These people like to please you because you're so righteous. I mean,
Yeah, that's exactly it.
okay.
So they're constructs and they're in a pearl, and your wife will have her own Houri. They don't talk about this. Only
Ooh.
this sheikh gets in a lot of trouble, I think, for mentioning this. But he said, I had some girls come to me the other day asking me, "Hey, if the boys get hoodies in heaven, do we get hoodies in heaven?" And he makes it sound like that's an awful question. He's like, "You can't go around asking people if this kind of question. This is a very embarrassing question." And but yes, the women will have their own in heaven, just like the men will have their own.
Will
and-
they be male?
Yeah.
Oh right. So they'll
Oh,
have their
yeah.
own male.
It's like a
constructs.
fuck fest over there. Like you're eating, you're fucking, and oh, he talks about how everything tastes different in heaven, and he's gonna be like, everything you taste over there will be different, and you'll be running around with your wife and your friends, and you'll be going eating trees and eating the apple, and you'll be wondering what the next thing will taste like, and you'll be running over here and eating that, like just
like children in a
Yeah,
sweet shop, yeah.
just going around smelling and tasting things, and the smell of sex will be in the air. I
Oh,
believe is
God.
what do you call it? The musk.
Constantly.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's so. But this is
Okay.
what I love about it.
what
It's
happens
so
if we
constructed.
what happens if I shag my neighbor's Houri?
Oh, I don't. I got to find out if there's Sharia in heaven, right? So I hope
Yeah.
There's got to be discipline. There can't.
Exactly.
They can't. You just can't be stealing from people.
Exactly. If I'm fucking my mate's Houri, he's probably gonna be a bit pissed off about that. And he
We
can't
are
really
the
be angry at the
opposite of
Houri.
Islam right now. Like we're making the real innovations in
Yeah,
Islam.
why aren't these questions being asked?
I don't know,
Come
Sheikh
on.
Sargon. We need to set up a consult.
I mean, I'm genuinely worried because I mean, I don't want to make enemies for eternity out of someone.
Yeah, that would be
His
awful.
Houri might
right?
be really attractive. I mean, they don't all look the same, right?
You know what? You might not have known. So did you know that only the disbeliever stays in hellfire forever?
Right. Okay.
No. Only that. So if you're like a sinful Muslim, you don't stay in hell forever.
Yeah.
Wait,
Because Allah's all forgiving, right? I mean,
yeah. So you work off those sins. Like you could be in hellfire for
Basically a treadmill.
for a really long time, but eventually it's a jail. Like you get out of the sentence.
Sure.
And
okay.
so there's a story Al-Laki tells because he's the best storyteller. Yeah. Oh, you're getting excited. So
I'm loving it. I can't tell you how much I'm loving it.
this is great. So the last man that goes from hell to heaven, and on his way from hell, he'd been in there for so long, so long.
With his giant ass. And...
Yeah, with his Mecca and Medina ass. And his 156 foot meters fucking skin. So the things that are going to be happening to him, he's going to be getting closer and closer to paradise, and each time he does, he's going to ask Allah to let him sit by the nearest tree, and God's going to be like, is that all you want? He's like, oh Allah, just let me sit next to this tree, and each tree's greener. So he keeps on saying this over and over and over and over, and eventually God starts getting pissed off. So it finally gets to the point where he says, oh Allah, just let me sit in front of the gates of heaven. He's like, is this all you want? Are you sure? This is like, he's talking to him like he's a kid. Are you sure you're not going to ask me for another thing after this? Are you sure this is it? And he's like, oh Allah, please, this is it. And then he gets in front of the gates of heaven, and then he hears the people in heaven, and he sits out there for a few hours, and he gets really, really jealous. He's like, oh Allah, please. And Allah comes over there. He's like, what do you want? What do you want? Like, what? Talks to him like he's a fucking kid. And then eventually he says, do you want to go into paradise? Do you want to go into paradise the size of the heavens of the earth and then the skies of the heavens? And he's like, oh, please, yes, so much. And it's like this crying, like fucking sob story. And it's really funny. But eventually Allah lets him into heaven. But it's just this, it's incredibly like interesting how homoerotic these stories really are.
Really?
Yeah. Oh my God. The love Abu Bakr and Muhammad had for each other are incredible. Like, there's got to be a fingering butthole story at some point.
You're joking.
No. Oh.
Why would I think you were joking?
Well, no, I was saying there has to be a story.
Oh, there has to be. Sorry, I thought I misheard you.
No, yeah, I was joking. I don't know if there is, but if there is, I'm sure it's not an authentic hadith.
Yeah, if there is, it's probably just the sort of thing they didn't write down. They probably just kept it between themselves.
They probably kept it in pictures, right? Because Muhammad pictures go well.
This has been the most hilarious thing I've ever heard in my life.
It lacks words. It really does.
Yeah,
it's so absurd on its face.
Yeah, just like, how deep into the religion do you have to be before any of this starts making sense? You know?
Oh man, I don't know how deep you have to be, but only the people that take these, because this is the problem. This is the real problem. So, without the hadiths, you don't know how many times to pray. You pray 3 times a day at most.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Isn't that mandated in the Quran then?
Mm-hmm. The Quran only has you should pray like at the day and night in the middle of the day, but they don't tell you when, they don't tell you how, they don't tell you what to do with your arms, because if you didn't know, God is paying a lot of attention to the way that you move your arms and you move your hands to your head, and if you don't do it in the right order, your prayer is like, it's like Control Alt deleted out of the existence. Like he doesn't get it. Like it goes to error sending. Yeah, it just comes back to your mail and says no reply, like in Gmail.
If you can believe that.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Are you a Jew? Is that...
Honestly, I do love reading about religions, but usually I read about them in like a historical context. You know, I mean, like Zoroastrianism, for instance.
Just real quick.
Oh yeah.
Remember that. They're in one caliphate. They're considered people of the book, and they're allowed to pay jizya, which is very interesting because only Christians and Jews are allowed to do that. And they think there's a third reference in one of the hadiths to another set of people that might be people of the book, and so they made a fatwa that said that these were the people of the book, and that ruling can actually be used to potentially give atheists the right to pay a jizya and live as atheists in the caliphate.
Oh, how magnanimous!
Yeah, I know, right? How pragmatic.
Yeah,
but go on, Zoroastrianism.
Yeah. They're it's been years since I've read it, but if I recall correctly, the challenge for Zoroastrians to getting into the heaven or afterlife, whatever it was they believe, was walking across a really narrow bridge. And if you got vertigo and you fell, well then it's too bad.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, exactly, basically. And it's just like, okay, that's a weirdly arbitrary thing for Ahura Mazda to have chosen. I mean, why what about if you can't walk? I was born without legs. You made me without legs. Now walk across this bridge.
I've got to share a picture with you that you're gonna
dick.
fucking love. Let me see if I have it. I have this picture. I don't think I have it on here, but I have this picture of a Muslim, jihadi fighter in ISIS in a wheelchair with no legs, and it's a part of their theory because one of the hadith says, "Go forth whether light or heavy." So they have like 90-year-old fighters over there, and they also have people with no legs. And this guy's holding on to like an anti-aircraft machine gun is what it looks like. And on the tweet that I found this, because I follow Islamic State supporters. This is how I get a lot of the information, by the way. And so one of the tweets the guy says, he goes, "What's your excuse for not coming to the caliphate, from not making hijrah on the caliphate?" And that's like the what's in your wallet kind of like statement. Like it's a really big slogan. And so this is also, I want to clear up some of the confusion that people have with these terms. So like when someone says taqiyya, if they're talking about Sunni Muslims, you're being a fucking idiot. You're being like, not only are you being an idiot, but you're being like an irrational idiot. You're being like a real right-wing dumbass when you say that. Because the only people that do taqiyya are the Shia. And that's because they were persecuted as a minority for so long that they had to just...
then flagellating themselves.
Yeah. No, taqiyya is when you lie in the pursuit of Islam.
Oh, right. Okay. So that's... Oh, yeah. Okay. No, I've heard this, that Muslims are allowed to lie.
Yeah, they're allowed to lie to the
but that's only the Shias, right?
Yeah, that is only the Shias. And this is something that Sunni Muslims will talk about. Like, you can't trust the Shias because they make taqiyya.
Well, if it seems to be a central pillar of their beliefs, then I can understand why they would say that.
Yeah. Well, so like, but this is the thing. So it's like when you say a Sunni Muslim saying taqiyya, it's like saying what is it? It's like saying
it's like a Protestant saying the Pope has said.
It's like saying a Jew's worshiping Jesus, and it's just like you're being stupid. You're being like irrationally stupid.
Yeah, no, I meet loads of people who in England they say, oh well, they're not loads, but there are people in England who I'm a Christian, and then they'll talk about something the Pope has done. I'm like, are you Catholic? And I'm like, no, I'm a Protestant. It's like, well, why do you care what the Pope says? Why are you voting
for this team? Like, what do you don't have a dog in the game, dumbass. Like,
he's your enemy.
You should be cutting his head off.
Yeah, exactly. You are literally diametrically opposed to this dude because he claims to be something
the
you think
mouthpiece
he's
of
not.
God. Yeah.
Yeah. It just people just don't know fucking what they're talking about.
So there's another term, because a lot of these people that are like anti-refugees, also, I don't blame a lot of people for being, anti-refugee. I think if you want to be anti-refugee, you need to be pro-Balkanization of these states, because if you're not willing to make peace for the people that are living there, then you shouldn't be talking. That's kind of like my view on this. Either fix the situation or accept refugees. Don't shun refugees and then not want to fix the situation.
Yeah. I personally think that Balkanization is probably the only realistic solution.
I agree completely. I already went over that. But so the term hijra, you'll see on a lot of memes where people are like, committing hijra. That's what the refugees are doing. They're making hijra to come to the land to impose Islam. Hijra doesn't mean that. Hijra is a term that is used specifically for you to emigrate to the caliphate, not to emigrate from the caliphate to other places.
Okay.
It is the opposite of what they are saying. They're being so irrationally stupid and bigoted and dumb in the process of sounding so stupid, they don't comprehend like the layers of dumb they're being. So like it is the caliphate has a video called like for France to come commit hijra to the land of the caliphate, and what's holding you back from coming to the caliphate, and what excuse are you holding on to your riches in this world, in this dunya means life.
Right.
This dunya, are you a worldly person? Do you not care about the akhirah, the afterlife? Do you not care about what's coming for you, the judgment and punishment from Allah? What are you doing here? Come over here, fight with us. Come to the caliphate, become a shaheed. Come and sit with your God. Intercede for the 74 people in your family. So when you martyr yourself, you are interceding for 74 of your family members. And I personally think it's this number because if you fuck 5 women and you have 5 kids with each of them, and then those kids have 5 kids, it gets pretty close to 70, I think. I could be wrong, but
I'm no math expert, so I'll take your word for it.
Take my word for math. We're fucked. you intercede for them. And what interceding means is anybody that's done like any sins at all, any sins, you take their punishment and it's checked in blank, paid in full. Oh my God, I forgot. Day of Judgment. So on the Day of Judgment, the rich people will have to wait 40 years longer than the poor people. And this is because
Privilege.
God needs to go through your finances to see how you got the money and how you spent it. And I'm not even kidding. This is how you use. So the poor people, how they got their finances, there's so little of it, Allah just gets through you really quickly. But the people that spent their whole life in this dunya getting a lot of money and doing money with their dunya, do they rip people off? Do they commit sins getting this money? Is this money from prostitution? Or is this money from, and what do they spend it on? Did they buy prostitutes? Did they buy sins? So you spend 40 years in paperwork before you can get to heaven.
See, all I'm thinking is, wow, the Arabs and the Jews really do worship the same God.
Yeah, really. Vindictive as fuck, isn't he? Just vindictive as fuck.
Just what on earth? Just, oh God, it's the Day of Judgment.
It's like the NSA has come to judge you.
40 years for paperwork as well. Fucking hell. I mean, I hate to say it, but English bureaucracy is better than that.
Oh, man. Fuck. Let's see if there's anything else left.
Yeah, if there's anything else, then hit me with it. But if not, thanks for coming on, man. This has been a blast.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thank you very much for having me on. I think that's it. I think we're good. We'll keep it this short so people actually listen.
Yeah. But this has been a really great conversation, actually. It's been really good to go over the details of just, what's going on in the Middle East. If you've got any sources that I can put in the description, that would be great.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Just send me them afterwards. Don't send me them now.
Okay.
And I'll put them in the description so A, I can read them, and B, everyone else can read them.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, finding out about the scholarship that's gone into the Day of Judgment has been hilarious.
It's the best story, man. It is seriously the best story. If you ever have time, just download his series and put it on your phone or something, and just listen to it while you're driving. It's so good. Because he has this music that's in the background that's like, Allah, Allah, the whole fucking time. 45 minutes of that, just in the middle of the background.
And that's surely just like the Islamic equivalent of like a choir.
Yeah. Well, so just real quick, the nasheeds and stuff, those are because instruments are banned. And this is why they're at like war with Hamas, because they use instruments in their nasheeds and they're not as pious. Yeah, instruments are all banned, all instruments. So if you listen to their music, they use double reverbs, double echo, and double and they use auto-tune on their nasheeds, their music.
The sinners.
Yeah. So that's
so that you're only allowed to sing. You can't.
You can only sing, and you can only sing about doing something in the name of Islam or worshiping God or killing in the name of God.
Can you whistle?
Do you want your head?
I do like it.
You need to think about that.
Whistling, I got it.
It's a tough choice: whistle or hellfire.
Well, sometimes I'm happy, and I've got spring in my step, and
well, just don't whistle to like as a melody. You could be that's okay, but like you're gonna get killed.
Okay, well, I there are a lot of rules, but I'll learn them eventually.
No, you won't. You're gonna be dead. You're so dead.
But no, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. This has been
thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Likewise.
And thanks for everyone listening and watching. I'm sure there have been plenty of head desk moments.
Sun is in hellfire.
and presumably a lot of split sides. But yeah, thanks again, everyone, and I'll speak to you all later.